Welcome everybody for the May 17th, 2019 of the Save Our Indian River Lagoon Project Plan Citizen Oversight Committee. Would you all rise with me, please, and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if we could have the roll call.
Yes. Lorraine Cost. Charles Venuto.
Present.
Vinnie Taranto.
Here.
John Windsor.
Here.
Carrie Casto. Laura Lee Thompson.
She's here.
Okay.
There she is.
Stephanie Ely. Melissa Martin.
Here.
Courtney Barker.
Here.
Todd Swingle.
Here.
Danielle Bowden. We had John Lusnar, David Lane, and Dennis Vasile have asked to be excused, so they had conflicts. We have a quorum.
Okay, we do have a quorum, and
Yes.
the voting members are
Cover down.
Yeah, Vinny's covering for John.
Courtney, Lorraine. Who's covering for Lorraine? Charlie.
We'll cover for Stephanie.
Danielle.
They're out.
Okay.
Real estate's out.
And John. Vinny, you're covering for John.
So you got
Melissa, you're covering for Stephanie.
five.
Yes, sir.
And I've got, okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Could I get a motion for the approval of the agenda? Are there any changes to the agenda? Any discussion on the agenda? You get a second on that?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes, any changes to the minutes? Motion to approve for somebody? Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's see, next we go to Virginia Barker, who will give us our monthly progress report.
Thank you. Good morning. At your seats, you should have a response from DOT. At a prior meeting, the Oversight Committee recommended that the County Commission ask DOT to consider enhanced circulation with the 528 widening. And so we took that recommendation to the County Commission. The County Commission voted to send a letter to DOT. You have a copy of the letter that was sent, signed by the chair and sent to DOT, and then DOT's response. DOT has put the 528 project on hold until a meeting can be held to discuss this. That meeting a meeting has been scheduled for June 12th. DEP and the Water Management District have also engaged in the process, and so, you know, I'm feeling better that we are going to have a multi-agency engagement in the discussion. Don't know where it's going to go, but you know, all the agencies concerned about lagoon water quality will be at the table, and it's nice to have sister agencies to DOT in that conversation.
Is that a public meeting, Virginia?
It's not advertised as a public meeting. It's just a, you know, agency gathering, but if any of you in particular want to be there, I can find out if that's.
I'd like to be there, if possible. I just think it's interesting that we do a study in 18, but a study that was done 15 years earlier is cited as a reason not to do something.
A lot has changed in the lagoon since 2003, 2006, and so assessments that were done at that time are not necessarily the best available information today.
Yeah. So is St. John's going to be in the meeting as well?
Yeah, the executive director, Ann Shortell, is going to be there.
And that guy right there?
Yeah, Dwayne DeFries is going to be there for NEP. Port Canaveral is going to be there. It'll probably be at Port Canaveral. Tom Frick with DEP. So it's
Okay.
leadership.
Okay. So if it's like too hard, necessarily need to be there, but it would be nice to be able to go.
Okay, I'll get meeting details.
If opening it as a public meeting is going to be difficult, then I don't want to be difficult, but it would be nice to go.
All right. Also, not on the progress report because it happened after the progress report went out. Last Friday, the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program approved their grant programs, and we had submitted the MICO Septic to Sewer project for matching funds to help the individual landowners connect to that project. So $246,400 was approved to assist with that program. So we're excited about that. And,
For what agency?
Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
And then at the top of your list, $500,000 from a legislative appropriation. So we're waiting to see what the governor does with all the legislative recommendations, but we're hoping that will also be available as match for our septic sewer projects. Staff's been very busy working on grant applications. This last month submitted multiple EPA 319H grant applications for septic sewer projects, 5 applications totaling $3.8 million. The fertilizer notice to consumers ordinance was adopted by the board on May 7th. Signs have been developed by our outreach and engagement and marketing team. I'm sure you'll see some of that later today, and those will be distributed before the summer season ban on nitrogen application.
Virginia, can we just butt in real quick? The Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition had, I think it's 3 stores that decided to remove their stock during the time. So I thought that was interesting to point out that they've been kind of trying to get some of the stores to just completely remove the fertilizer out of the stores during the ban. And they were able to convince 3 stores to do that.
Yes,
so.
and we would love to work on making that information known, and I know Commissioner Lober was also interested in knowing the names of those specific stores so that he could give credit to them publicly as well. So,
Okay. Yeah, they have it on their Facebook page, and Sun Harbor Nursery on O'Galley is one of them.
Rockledge Gardens.
Rockledge Gardens is
And
the other
Ace,
one.
I think.
And Ace Hardware.
Yep.
Ace Hardware in Titusville. So,
And each of them said something slightly different that I tried to include in the posting that we did. So
Okay.
it's not, we're pulling it all.
so make sure that we look at the post.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought that was great that you guys have been advocating for that and getting that done. So I just wanted to give you some kudos there for that.
on the leaky lateral pilot project in Satellite Beach, we now have 11 property owners that have told us they want to work with us on grants to get those leaky laterals repaired and collect groundwater data to measure the effectiveness of that project in reducing pollution. The Grand Canal Muck Dredging Project, the selection committee has recommended award to Gator Dredging, and that recommendation is going to the county commission on Tuesday. Derelict vessels, we've removed 3 more derelict vessels, so it's good to have funding for that program and where we can remove vessels as fast as they get cleared by the state for removal. Leaping down, and I'm skipping a lot of the details because I know you had requested a detailed review of the green sheets. So the Gitlin Oyster Bar construction started this week, and they've been making really good headway. We're further along yesterday than they expected, so that is nearly complete. And then we have been working with the auditors again on a new kind of audit. They're auditing processes and looking at how we might be able to streamline things to make projects move faster. So that's the front side of the sheet. And then on the back side under presentations, I just wanted to highlight the Lagoon Coalition Straight Talk Forum at Dixie Crossroads. Laura Lee, do you want to say anything about that?
Free food. Dixie Crossroads too, so we're all
At Dixie Crossroads. Now, it's for the citizens in the north end of the lagoon, and it's following after the highly successful Straight Talk session that was held at the Gleason Auditorium at FIT. Standing room only at that event. I hope that it's standing room only at our event too. They didn't have shrimp at Gleason Auditorium. You know, shrimp is good bait. It works for fish, but it works on people too. But I hope that the people from North Brevard will come and support the hard work that the Indian River Lagoon Coalition folks have done putting it together, and all of the wonderful experts that are coming to speak. I've been talking to the bait house owners and different people, and we're very excited to have something coming to the north end of the county too. So 5:30 p.m. On Monday, June 3rd. Seating is limited. You need to register in advance if you want a seat, and you can register by going to helpthelagoon.org, and then there will be a link so that you can register. So thank you for the opportunity to promote it.
Thank you for hosting. That's great.
Is that something that there's an anticipation that multiple members might go, and would it need to be posted as a possibility as a public meeting?
I'd like to do that because there may be multiple elected officials from Titusville coming too, so we probably should post it.
Well,
think you tend to
Titusville would
be-
have to advertise their own
Yeah.
meeting. You could advertise, if you're just going to attend, that wouldn't be an issue, but I went to the one at FIT and there was a
Q&A.
Q&A section. I don't know if you're going to handle it the same way.
It's simple enough to post, I think.
I'm
it's
going to be
better.
on that panel for the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll, yes,
therefore,
advertise.
there you go.
Yes.
So Christine, so you guys will advertise for the county, but the city of Titusville needs to advertise
Correct.
in case any city of Titusville people? Okay.
All right, the only other thing I wanted to highlight, which is not on here, was that Monday we had a celebration. I attended a celebration of the O'Galley dredging project completion, and you know, a lot of agencies, a lot of state elected officials, the citizens who brought that project forward. Everybody was very pleased with how that project has gone, and 600,000 cubic yards of muck removed from the O'Galley River, containing 1,200 tons of nitrogen. So it's a lot of pollution removed from the lagoon system. Unless there are any questions on this, I'll hand it over to Brandon.
All right, so I can give you an update on the various outside agency projects that are going on, so I'll leave it to the other staff to update their projects. So we'll start off, as Virginia mentioned, with the Gitlin Oyster Reef. They were doing construction of the reef yesterday and should hopefully be finishing that up today, the main part of it. Staff will go in afterwards, after all the volunteers are done, and do what little wrap-up needs to be done. So hopefully that should be completed by next week on that one.
She's a satellite beach resident.
Yes, in Satellite Beach. The Cocoa Beach muck dredging Phase 3, so they are 71% complete with that project, and they're moving along as they expected to be. They do have some challenges with the containment area being small, doesn't allow them to move as fast as they'd like to, but they have to do a periodic emptying of it every once in a while to keep up with that. But still moving at the pace they wanted. And then the Cliff Creek baffle box.
Sorry, everybody's flipping through their green sheets, and you're in a different order. So
Yeah, I was starting down with the Brevard Zoo, and we're moving,
Once you get past all the Brevard County stuff.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going on to the City of Melbourne with, they have their, let's see, Hogan first, yeah. So with Hogue, we're looking at, the force main is complete, and they've already had one home connected, and they are just waiting on their additional connection. So once the main's in, they give the homeowners up to a year to connect, so they're working on that.
How many homes are in there, Brandon, total, do we know?
I'm trying to remember, there's a couple different Melbourne ones, and they're always a jumble on which,
Like 100?
Danny's here.
No, there's
7.
more, I think.
7 for that one.
7.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask, so the homeowners have a few years to connect?
1 year.
They have 1 year. And is that standard throughout the county? Or according to
That's
municipality?
state rule.
And, yeah, so,
Make one statement. It's state law that is inconsistently enforced across the state, and so it's good to see that it's enforced, because there is no debate in state law about what the language is, but the enforcement in many places is highly inconsistent.
and a lot of other areas too, they only require it with gravity. Melbourne requires it with both force mains and gravity.
Okay.
All right. Then we have the Penwood project. They have also completed the force main construction on that one and have one home connected, and they're awaiting additional connections on that one as well. And then with Cliff Creek, so that one is 2 different force mains, and they finished the first phase of that, so they've installed the first force main, and they'll be, oh, I'm sorry, it's the wrong one here. Yep. Wrong one there. I was thinking of Riverside, yeah, sorry. So Cliff Creek, that one is under design, so they're 90% completed, and they're awaiting permitting on that. And estimate about 25% of the project overall is complete. So then Riverside is the one that is, they've 2 force mains, they've completed the first one and have one homeowner connected to that one. And then, so they'll be hopefully doing the construction of that second force main soon. All right. Then, so those are the ones that are in progress for Melbourne. We're going to move down, oh, I'm sorry, Thrush Drive. We have one more for, yeah. So Thrush Drive is, the flow monitoring is been completed, so that was the one that had a delay because they didn't have enough rain to do their monitoring, to do their design, to get the right size. So they've finished the flow monitoring now. They've collected the data they needed. They have their design underway, which is about 25% complete currently. All right. So now we're moving on to Palm Bay. And the Palm Bay North Region Water Reclamation Facility. So they've encountered a few hiccups along the way, but they have completed 100% design plans for the project and technical specifications. And they're doing their preliminary engineering and final, or the preliminary engineering and final design are also 100% complete. They had some setback variances that they had to apply for, so when they were doing their design, realized that the footprint they needed to get some setback variances. That went to their zoning board on May 1st and was passed unanimously, and will be going for final approval to the City Council on the 6th, but they don't foresee any problems with that passing, especially with the full support of the zoning board. And with that, they did a revision to their FDP permit, and they're just waiting on that. In fact, they hoping to receive that by the end of this month. And they did find that their costs are a bit higher than they first expected when they designed the project. So they estimated back in 2015, and construction costs have risen considerably since then. So they will likely be coming to you guys to ask for an increase in that, and they're gathering all the information on that so they can bring that to you hopefully in the July meeting.
Virginia, just real quick, the increase, didn't we say if it was under a certain amount that staff had, that they were the ones discretion to?
There are multiple levels of review, but this exceeds all of those, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Then the Crane Creek and M1 Canal flow restoration with St. Johns River Water Management District. They have their design 50% complete, and they've provided plans to Brevard County for review, and they're awaiting permits, but they have to get property rights acquisition from property owner where the pump station site is going to be. So they're waiting on that landowner authorization before they can get their permit on that. All right. And then they'll be getting a intergovernmental agreement with Brevard County for the stormwater treatment portion. Okay. Then City of Titusville. So the St. Teresa Basin in Titusville, they've got 100% complete on their design. They have received their permits. It went out to bid at the beginning of this year, and on March 12th, they awarded it to SDV Services. And they are expecting to issue the notice to proceed on 5/28 to them. So construction should hopefully be beginning on that one. The South Street Basin, they had begun construction on that one in February. That one is actually 3 different baffle boxes. So they have the Isaac Campbell baffle box completed, as well as the one at Palmetto Avenue complete. And there's one final one that will be going in on Wagner Avenue, but they are currently waiting on the baffle box to be constructed and delivered to them, and 2, there was a gas line issue that they had to relocate a gas line, so they're waiting on that. So once that's moved, then they can put the new baffle box, the final baffle box in that project in. Then we have La Paloma. They also are finished with all their design and awarded also to SDV Services, so they received notice to proceed at the same time as the other one on 5/28. And then we have the contracts for the Titusville High baffle box and the Coleman Pond Maps project. Those just went out to the city, and they are approving them. They should be hopefully coming back to us shortly, but they had to bring it to their council. And then last, the West Melbourne Sylvan Estates. So that one, they have their final design documents compiled and submitted to the permitting agencies. They did that back in February, and they're just waiting on the permits. They're hoping to get those this month. And then once that happens, they'll be going to bid in either July or August, and they are planning on construction starting on October 1st.
Brandon, could you go back to Osprey wastewater treatment facility?
Yep, sorry. So Osprey, sorry, I skipped that one. The city staff was reviewing the process they'd be using, and they did an extensive review of a few different, systems, and decided on a step feed treatment process. And they've are in design phase currently and have 10% of that complete.
Question, John? In looking at the Living Shoreline projects, see that some of them are plants only. I've been speaking with some homeowners that live along Riverside Drive in Titusville, and they don't want mangroves. Is there, and they've talked to the zoo people, and they've been told that they don't qualify because they don't want mangroves. Is there a reason? To my knowledge, mangroves weren't a part of the ecosystem along the west shore of the lagoon in the Titusville area.
So, we've said mangroves or equivalent. The problem there is you've got a tremendous fetch.
Yeah.
And so the erosion stresses are too high for Spartina or, for a low marsh grass. It's got to be, a large rooted plant.
Okay, so they were also told that because of the grade, it's so shallow for a long way out in the river along the west shore of the lagoon and off of Titus Hill. They were told that they didn't qualify for oyster bags, but why couldn't they put a line of coquina rocks out away from their property and then put the grasses in?
The permits, the state permits, state and federal permits for living shorelines allow homeowners a footprint that goes 10 feet out from the ordinary high water line.
Okay.
And so if the water is too shallow, within 10 feet of the water line, that, oysters are going to be exposed during the dry season, that just doesn't work. So the sill, much further out, would work in terms of erosion protection, but the permitting for that is not the normal living shoreline process.
Right. Okay, I understand that, but the coquina rocks could take the place of the oyster bags, and you could put them 10 feet in. So what do we got to do? You could get a mile of living shoreline. All of those homeowners would agree, they don't want mangroves. They don't want to have to trim them, and they don't want to lose their view. But if there were a way to do coquina rock, the rock would stop the wave action. That shoreline has been torn up. I mean, it went under the street in some places.
Right, over the
And
street.
so, how do we fix that? Is it going to take? Do I got to go to Tallahassee and talk to DEP, or?
We have had multiple meetings with the agencies about the living shoreline permits, and there are concerns about what will work in that environment. They don't want things that are going to displace seagrass, which is
There's no
the
seagrass there
highest.
right now.
They don't care that seagrass isn't there right now. They're looking at, was seagrass ever there? Is this a place where seagrass habitat, has previously been? And they don't want to occupy space that could, once we clean up the water, once again be occupied by seagrass. So,
But the seawalls and the construction rubble that they're putting along the shoreline is going to make it where seagrass will never grow anyway.
That's my problem with the state sometimes. It's like they can't see the forest through the trees. It's like, if for example, they have seawalls, they'll probably, you don't have to have a permit to put St. Augustine grass all the way to the shore. But if you want to do a living shoreline, you have to go through a year of permitting. It just doesn't make any sense. And over there's going to be areas along the Indian River Lagoon where we have to recognize that they're never going to go back to what it used to be because of that reason. So if you want homeowners to do a living shoreline, there probably needs to be some give there because, they're not going to move from a seawall and construction debris to a living shoreline, without some give, and then you'll never have seagrasses. So that's what you got to figure out which one's better, seawall or what they're all willing to do.
If I could interrupt there, I think we're having a conversation here about the progress of these projects that are
I'm sorry.
that are funded, and if we want to discuss this, go on for quite a while, maybe we should agenda this at some point in the future, have some living shoreline experts. We have had some before, but maybe we need to bring somebody back again and have a discussion about this in more detail. We're talking about projects that are already funded and the progress of those projects. So can I
Very
bring,
good chair right now, thank you.
could I rein this discussion back in and let's get back to the rest of the projects,
I'm sorry,
okay?
John.
I'm trying for a record-short meeting, if possible.
If anybody can do it.
Keep that up and they'll make you chair next year.
Just going to make one request when that comes back, if we could not only just have some experts talk in generalities, but perhaps discuss some concepts on this specific area, on things that might be ways that we could lobby Tallahassee on saying, here's some reasonable approaches that would, for a minimal sacrifice, has notable gains.
And rather than an FDEP expert giving us a presentation, how about an FDEP expert here who could field Laura Lee's questions rather than leaving it up to Virginia to speak for FDEP? Okay? All right, so could we get, sure.
Question regarding this stuff. Brandon, does the function of monitoring the nutrient load removal or prevention, is that within these contracts? Like, are they tasked with monitoring their own project performance, or is that a county function?
So it depends on the project. So we have some independent monitoring that is done with some of our living shorelines, but not all of them are included in that. So like Brevard Zoo is monitoring the Riverside Senior Center project that they did. They're doing their own monitoring on that because it didn't get within the contract timeline that we had for the independent monitoring. But a lot of the other ones we have monitoring with the groundwater monitoring at select sites. We're not doing monitoring on every single site, but we have tried to select a wide variety of projects and make sure that we have the performance we're expecting.
So some of the city projects have, if they have a grant that requires monitoring, then they're doing the monitoring. We review their monitoring plan, and if we want some additional information, then we provide additional funding to them to ramp up their monitoring to meet our needs. Otherwise, we're typically doing third-party monitoring for a subset of projects, a representative subset of projects.
For the purpose of the plan. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to update you on my projects, which are the county stormwater ones for Sorrel. The first one you see is going to be Johns Road. So that one's near completion. We had to do a change order to lower the orifice to get higher treatment levels. And that goes the same with Flounder Creek. They're both in the North County, very close to each other. So those are basically being designed together. Then for Kings Mill, we went through the land acquisition stage and got a big piece of land up in Melbourne. And we also want to acquire an FDOT pond that's really close to that, so we can incorporate all of it for a large pond for heavy treatment. We had the meeting with FDOT last week, and it went pretty well. We think we can do a public purpose transfer if we show that it won't cause any extra flooding. So once we have more calculations, that'll be going along. Then Huntington Pond, that one we got preliminary design done and reviewed and sent back to the consultant. The next phase is I need to speak to a landowner on property, or basically an easement for this design. So I'm working with someone in my department right now on that. Then we have Fonder Creek, which I said, that one, we had a change order for more treatment for that also. We did get the preliminary design for that last week, I believe, and we reviewed it. We spoke with the consultant last week in a phone call, and we have a little bit of changes we're going to make there, but that one's moving along quickly now. 1349 and 1409, those are being designed at the same time together too, same consultant. And he is now looking at permitting options for those, so those are nearing completion. They say 1% in project complete because I had carried over the funding complete, the percent complete for invoices. The reason I did that is I didn't have an updated number yet from him, so they are a lot further along than the 1%. And then Basin 989, it's a tricky basin. It's in a mosquito impoundment. and we want to figure out a way to treat them, because if we do, we have quite a few basins in the plan that fall in that category. So we're going to do 2 task orders for this one. We're going to do the first task order, which will look over all the different treatment options we can do, and then the second task order will be zoning in on the best one. So as of right now, we just finished making the first task order. We're going to go get it signed, and then, so that one might be a slower process in design, but once we get it going, hopefully that can help for future mosquito impoundment projects for treatment. And then the ones on the next page, these are different engineers in our department that submitted these projects for SORL funding. So these weren't necessarily in the plan to begin with. With that being said, I don't have really any updates on these off the top of my head. They're all in design from what I know. It looks like Basin 832 is completed design, and 51, which is a different Johns Road than mine. But those I don't have much information
and
on.
the SORL portion isn't kicking in until the construction phase on that. So they were using other grant funds for their design and engineering.
Any questions on those? Nope.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to go over the muck removal projects. This is, oh, it's coming apart on me. It starts on the third sheet of their performance progress tables that we have. So I'll just start from the top. So MIMS muck removal, that project. The dredging was completed in late December of 2018. There was a temporary shutdown as a result of some environmental monitoring at the DMMA site, which is also a future fine DMMA site called BV11. The contractor has recently remobilized and begun decommissioning the DMMA site. We anticipate that will likely be done late July, maybe early August. And then Grand Canal Project, Virginia updated you on that. The selection committee met, I believe it was last week, and recommended contract award. This will go before the board on May 21st. And ultimately, so we'll figure out where we're going from there once it gets before the board.
Yeah, just add, the first step for that project is going to be building a turn lane off of Pineda Causeway into the DMMA, and so there's a lot that's going to have to happen before a dredge arrives, just so everybody knows.
Yep, we're looking at probably 4 to 6 months of work upland before they move a speck of dirt in the water, so it could be a while. Sykes Creek, that is, so we have, for those of you that don't know, we have broken that project into 2 phases. One is the smaller phase 1 project, where the proposed plan is to use what is called Kiwanis Island. That's not to be confused with the actual Kiwanis Island Park. There's an island, I guess it's off to the north a little bit, that was a former dredge spoil management area, and we are going to be dredging the area to the east of this island and the Kiwanis Island Park. That would be our phase 1 project. That is also going before the board. We're requesting authorization from the board to allow us to bid this project, or put this project out to bid, so to speak. And phase 2 is the remainder of the dredge areas to the north of Sykes Creek project Parkway up to the north end of our project area, where we would likely utilize either a fine site in North Merritt Island, or we're considering purchasing a parcel which internally we call the Walmart site. I'm not sure what name we actually call it at this point. It's a 10-acre parcel behind the Walmart in Merritt Island on 520. So the DMMA sites for phase 2 are kind of up in the air. We do have the option for the fine site in North Merritt Island, but we're also evaluating purchasing this property behind Walmart. Turkey Creek muck redredging after Irma, there was some infilling there. That project was completed, I believe it was May of 2018. That included the redredging after Irma impacts, as well as interstitial treatment for phosphorus removal. For that project, we did not have nitrogen removal component for the nutrient treatment. The Merritt Island muck removal, which is a substitute project, that is for just for reference, that's what I would call east central Merritt Island along the west shoreline of the Banana River. There's a series of residential canals along North Banana River Drive there. The design the permit level design was completed. Permit applications were submitted a little over a month ago. We received our first RAI from FDEP. They're in the process, the consultants in the process of preparing a response to that RAI. There was nothing earth-shattering or unnerving about the RAI, but we have yet to hear back from the feds. They usually take a little bit longer. The Army Corps has to consult with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and I'm not sure if they consult with National Marine Fisheries Service, but it typically takes a little while longer to hear from the federal agencies on these projects. But and the funding for that project, the funding for the design and permitting has come from the District 2 dredge funding pot. I don't know how it's a tax for the District 2 property owners up there, and that's how they're paying for the design and permitting. Titusville area muck removal, it shows project complete is about 10%. So what that reflects is really seagrass surveys in the Titusville area. We've done the seagrass surveys. We haven't done any bathymetric data collection or engineering or surveying level muck mapping yet. That's the next step in the progress, or in the process. And that also applies. I'm going to skip one. That also it's the same for the Rockledge area muck dredging. We've done seagrass surveys, but that's the extent of the work that we've done at this point. The O'Galley area muck dredging, we're pretty far along. We're waiting on the first final design draft bid package from the consultant. That project will be coming on the heels of the Sykes Creek invitation to bid, so that likely will be going out to bid in the next couple months. And I think that's all I've got on any of the muck removal projects. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
Regarding the RFPs requiring lining versus non-lining, can you walk us through some of the issues that the public has concerns with regarding non-lining projects?
So I'm going to steer towards Grand Canal because I know that's a particular project where concerns have been raised by constituents about whether or not the spoil management area is lined versus unlined. So the way this project was bid, we requested, because contractors have very specific means and methods that they like to use for the spoil management site, we said, here is your working footprint. We have permitted this footprint. Tell us what you can do here, with your technologies and your means and methods. So they're required to submit us a proposed design for the spoil management area, how they're going to bring the dredge material onto the site, how they're going to process the material, how they're going to return the water, and then how they're going to ultimately dewater the material, get it into trucks, and haul it away. So we really left it open-ended to them on whether or not they were going to line the site. For the Grand Canal project, that they're proposing lining, I don't want to go into too much detail because we could spend a lot of time talking about it, and I think it's probably time more well spent talking on the bigger picture. But so we don't require lining, but going back to concerns with some of the chemical constituents, for example, there's a whole litany of heavy metals that we do analysis for, like there's arsenic, chromium, copper, barium, just to name a few. As part of that testing, there's 3 parts to the test that are done for those heavy metals. For example, there is the total concentration when we collect samples out of the muck. There's what was the total concentration of that particular constituent in the sample that you collected, and it's reflected as milligrams per kilogram. Then there is also a leachability test that is done, which under normal weathering conditions, this leachability test will represent how much of these constituents will percolate out of the muck, the dredge material, and into the existing soils or whatever it's sitting on. And then there is also the elutrate.
Versus how much is stuck to the
sediment. Versus how much is stuck to the sediment sample, the solids of the dredge material. And then there's also what is called the elutrate test, which is to mimic the disturbance and turbulence that the dredge material will go through as it's tumbling through the dredge pipe. will these constituents be released into the water column, and will that water that is decanted off of the dredge material with potential constituents end up back in the lagoon. So all of those tests for the 22 samples that we ran came back as below either the minimum detection limit or the practical quantitation limit, which means all of those chemical constituents are bound very well, I guess you might say, in the sediments themselves. So we have not required lining. The other side of it is the potential implications of nitrogen and phosphorus, infiltrating the groundwater. The material is there temporarily. So the material sits there, they dry it enough to get it into haul trucks, and then they move it away. This is not a long-term site where this material will sit there for years and years at a time. So we anticipate that impact would be negligible in terms of nitrogen or phosphorus impacts into the groundwater in that area. I'm not sure if that answers your question. I'm kind of latching on to the one project where we have this, a spoil site where these questions have been raised by concerned citizens.
So the bottom line is that you are using due diligence in understanding the potential harm, and you're testing these things 22 times, you said?
Yeah, there was
in that
22
particular
samples
project?
collected throughout the Grand Canal project area. So that's, those are the samples that were analyzed for.
And then there's testing the truck material.
Yes, and then we will be testing the truck material as it is leaving the site to see what kind of constituents are in the material, or how it has changed, I guess is a better way to describe it. Because they're going to be mixing and amending the material, because they will have, we'll just call it a coarse fraction of sand and shell, and then they will have a concentration of muck, and they'll be mixing that and hauling that away to an upland disposal site, which for Grand Canal will be agricultural lands west of I-95. And what they have done historically is they take that material, they spread it in thin layers, and then they till it in, and they've used it as kind of a fertilizer shot, if you will, for pasture lands, because a lot of those lands are pretty sandy soil and vegetation doesn't grow real well out there.
And the Department of Health and those guys are on top of all things that could potentially harm human health.
Right. So when we do the permitting, the testing for the PCBs and the volatile organic compounds, the heavy metals, that is required by the state, and the state reviews all of that information before they issue a permit, before they issue the environmental resource permit, and the feds look at it as well. So we provide all this information to the regulatory agencies.
And this is going on for each of your muck dredging projects?
Yep. Happens for each project.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Thank you.
So I'm Anthony. So I'm going to go over the sewer projects. Sykes Creek Zone N, as a reminder, is a force main extension project. Finger Canals and East Merritt Island are having their force mains extended down those streets to reach the whole way. We are basically at 100%, but we had some permit application paperwork that needed to be redone. So we're still waiting for the final document to be put in before we can apply for all the permits required and move forward with the construction. South Central C Septic Sewer, which is Indian River Isles and the Rockwood Suntry area, that is about to reach 60% design. The consultants are finalizing their 60% design. We should expect that anytime now. And Sykes Creek Zone M and T, which is the Horty Point, Newfound Harbor, and Milford Point areas of East Merritt Island. They will be starting land acquisition for construction easements and dewatering soon. They had just completed 30% design. They're moving forward with trenchless gravity sewer, meaning they will directionally drill the gravity sewer down the street since there's not enough room to do a trench in those tight neighborhoods. I believe that is it. Any questions on that?
Thank you.
So real quick, just to get you up to speed, outside of the muck removal projects, there is one septic sewer project that I'm responsible for, and that's the Mosquito septic sewer project. We are at 90% design, which is good. As Virginia indicated, we are ranked number 2 on the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program grants list. So it looks like we'll be receiving about $247,000 to supplement the Save Our Lagoon and hopefully the 319 grant. So we're going to be meeting with the consultant here in the near future to wrap this up and get it out on the street, as an advertisement to bid. So, any questions on that project? Thank you.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking. Before we go on special presentations, I want to remind the question?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment on that. That was a great review and appreciate it because I know it took a lot of time and effort to put that together. And I think there were maybe 15 projects in there that were listed as complete, 100%, and they run the gambit, right? There's muck removal, there's septic to sewer, there's baffle boxes, there's oysters. So, I think we need to sometimes step back and smell the roses here because we've done some good work, or some good work has been done by the staff and all the contractors. And I know we got a long way to go, but it's good to get that information out that we are making some accomplishments, that the money is being spent wisely, and hopefully we'll start seeing improvements.
Excellent point. Before we go on to the presentations, I remind members of the audience, if you want to say something during the public comment period, there are these pink cards available for you to fill out up here, and please fill them out and turn them in, and we'll have public comment after our new business later on in the meeting. Okay, as we move on to these special reports, and first we've got Mr. Walter Wood coming in from Market Talent Network Advertising, and Susan Sperling, Media Director for Market Talent Advertising, to give us a short presentation on Lagoon Loyalty Outreach and Engagement.
Brandon pulls that up. So this is the firm that was selected to do the outreach and engagement funded through the half-cent sales tax. So starting off with fertilizer and septic maintenance.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm Walter Wood with MTN, and I'm not sure how familiar you all are with us or if it matters, but we've been here for 32 years and lived in the community and very engaged in the lagoon health. Okay. And this is Susan. She's going to make sure she helped us all the data. We're going to try and boil down 7 months of work into the next 15 minutes. Does that get brighter?
Yeah.
It just warms up? Okay. We're going to take you through the objectives all the way through the timeline. And it's been fairly vigorous, but the one thing that's important, all the work y'all have done in the past with all the coalitions and MRC and KBB and everybody has been very helpful to us because we've learned so much so fast. Okay? We're going to tell you what we've learned, but if I'm preaching to the choir, nudge me so I don't over-belabor some certain points, okay? But, our basic goal was to increase public awareness and compliance with the fertilizers regulations. And our job is to tell the community that misuse, how much the negative effect is. We want to make sure people are aware of that. The first step is to go to retail stores and their staff and promote the products so they can tell their customers. Then in regards to septic maintenance, we want to increase public awareness about the septic system maintenance and how septic system misuse harms the lagoon. That's sort of the nutshell. Well, our goal in everything over the years is to change behaviors. Okay, so it's going to take years to do this, but it's sort of an aggressive outreach. So this is how we're going to do it. We know that stormwater drains in the non-compliant fertilizers. And we want to educate and convince the target audiences that fertilizer ordinances and practices and how to adopt them and use them. Okay? So those behaviors are no fertilizer can be applied to the lawns during the rainy season. Check the weather. Do it before rainfall. Only apply fertilizer with 50% nitrogen slow release. And limit the phosphorus to 0 unless the soil confirms it's needed. But as you pointed out, we're phosphorus rich. And no fertilizer can be applied 10 feet to 25 feet per ordinance to a body of water. Okay, and the goal is to remove 81,000 pounds of nitrogen and 4,200 pounds of phosphorus from the watershed into the lagoon. We're going to say it simply. Okay. With the septics, overused and improperly maintained have in unsuitable drain field conditions harm the lagoon. People will know about that. So educate and convince target audiences to adopt maintenance practices for septic systems that benefit the lagoon. Okay. So people will know, we want to tell people to know where their septic tank is and to protect it. Have only grass near it. Have it inspected. There's different answers from different septic systems, but 3 years was the overriding choice. And don't dispose of any hazardous waste that doesn't belong in there. Okay? With target audiences for fertilizer, and this is broad, and we're not going to be able to reach all of these instantly, but over time they will grow. But we're going to select homeowners, business owners as new residents. It's our first initial target. This is for fertilizer. And there's 5 sets of people within this whole array. But you've got homeowners, irrigation business, commercial builders, retail garden centers. But we've broken them down into decision makers, and that's the individuals responsible for applying the fertilizer. That's the homeowners. We've got contractors, and those who are contracted on behalf of the individual to provide the service. Then we've got informants. That would be HOAs and other people who tell people about that. Then we've got point of sale persuaders, and that's the people who are actually selling the fertilizer at the stores. And then we've got influencers and those who dictate the location of certain landscape features like architectural people and building contractors. They have influence on what people do with their fertilizer. All right, in regard to septic tanks, we have decision makers. People own the septic tanks. Target markets for the contractors would be realtors and homeowners, informants for homeowners, and influencers. So again, it's decision makers, contractors, informants, and influencers that are important in our messaging. Now, I'm going fast because I want to get to the good stuff. But the surveys we've done, we've had 3 so far. Okay, Susan implemented a survey month. We got 203 respondents with a wide array of questions. All these hovered around the same factors and the same similar questions, but they all had different approaches to it. We had a student storefront survey where we took some Bright Future Scholarship kids and dropped them off at Lowe's and Home Depots and Walmart garden centers, and they surveyed people as they're going by. We got 120 all in one day on a Saturday. I personally took them in an RV and made sure they did their work, and they surveyed 120 people. What was interesting is Home Depot was likely to chase us off, and the Lowe's is more likely to welcome in. It was an interesting phenomenon. Then we had a secret shopper survey where we would call the same retail stores and septic tank owners to get what are they telling the people over the phones? What are the first respondents telling there? So it's remarkable. There's a good array of information to go on top of all the work y'all have gathered over the years. Okay, and here's some of the findings that supported us and guided us in our creative application. The good thing is that 93% of the population is concerned about the health and cleanliness of the lagoon. So we're swimming upstream with that, or downstream. And 93% also said they think fertilizer does have an effect on the health of the lagoon. But what was interesting, 66% of the people did not know which type of fertilizer was best, so that gives us an objective and a responsibility. 70% of garden center employees said to fertilize before it rains, so the other 25% didn't give the right answer. They said, okay. 60% of those on a septic tank said they did know where their drain field was. And 44% of those with septic tanks said they monitor and maintain the system themselves. That means 56% of the people aren't really aware of it. Okay. Now, what's also interesting is that 57% of the people we surveyed said they had not been exposed to ads or any type of communication helping them know what they can do to help the lagoon. So we have 43% of the market to reach even again. Now what? Well, what we've learned is that most Brevard County citizens do care about the health of the lagoon. They're looking for guidance on how to help. So this is our plan to educate and persuade people to adopt behavior beneficial to the lagoon. The most important part of this is repetitive behavior. We're trying to change people's thoughts and actions for years. And the way to do that is to re-incentivize them. Make sure they can have a reason to keep going and keep working towards the goal. Okay? Now, this program rewards positive behavior beneficial to the health of the lagoon. Changing behavior takes 15 to 254 days, depending on what behavior you're trying to change. But sustained engagement is the most important aspect of behavioral change. So we've set up this Lagoon Loyal program so that people will continue to stay involved. And when I show it to you, you'll understand how. Okay? Now, our goal is to entice people with incentives to repeatedly engage with our website and to form new habits so they want to keep coming back. Now, this was an interesting piece of data. 76% of the shoppers said they would be more motivated to help the lagoon if they knew they could get local merchant discounts. Well, that leaves 24%. That other 24%, or about 90% of that 24%, say they're going to do it anyway. They don't need the incentives, so they're on the program. They understand the need. And 86% of shoppers have said they've joined a loyalty program. And we collecting so they can collect their rewards. Okay, and that's and what does it mean to be Lagoon loyal? Well, on the citizen level, I am Lagoon loyal when I've adopted actions that yield minimal impact on the health of the lagoon. Now, I'm a Lagoon loyal business if I help prompt individuals to commit to these actions by offering them an incentive at my local establishment. Okay. So we have the businesses supporting the program, customers coming into the businesses that become Lagoon loyal. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. Okay. Well, we developed. First thing you're going to do is develop the logo and the unique identity so that people can say, well, they're part of the program. So this logo, which you're about to see, will be on people's windows, on every piece of communication we have, whether it be Facebook posts or bumper stickers or store windows or billboards. It's going to be everywhere. People identify and alert the public that a particular business is participating in the Lagoon Loyal program. And it's also a symbol of pride for people who are actually participating. Our Brevard County Focus Group confirmed the logo is simple, readable, and relevant. The icon is scalable and versatile to work across multiple media with any size constraint. So it's good this big on a business card, and it's this big on a billboard. The motion-filled icon is made of two hands enveloping the fluidity of the river, suggesting the necessity that the health of the lagoon is in our hands. So, the circle is evolutionary, harmonious, and planetary, and here it is, Lagoon Loyal.
This guy
Now,
sounds like he's given art appreciation.
ooh ah. I mean, it's when you look at it in big and large and small, it really does. You can see the hands, you can see the beauty of the whole representation. It's very well received by the target market. But as soon as you see that on the side of a storefront, you'll know your discounts and your merchant applications are available there. Now, the core message, all right, to get us started, you have to have some type of verbal cue. So, given what we learned, we know that people are looking for direction and they will respond. Everybody wants to be told. The majority of people really do care, but they don't really know exactly what to do. Okay? So you want to make sure that they understand what's coming to them is a direction. We also want to tie the phrase on the launch to the initial goals of the outreach. And the goals of this campaign is clear, clean water. Okay, that's our goal. It's just it's so simple and pure. Okay? And we kind of want to make sure that it's something people respond to. So I want to base it on a common directive that people are familiar with. Like when your mother or your supervisor or your sergeant says something to you, he really wants to make sure you understand what you're saying. He will say, let's be clear. And that subhead, a clean lagoon is everybody's business, changes a million times. But the phrase, let's be clear, is the theme to get the ball rolling in terms of clarity, and what you're seeing is what you're believing. This is what you need to understand. And it changes multiple times. Okay. Now, so that's the core of the creative. But here's how Lagoon loyalty programs tend to work. Moving right to left, we have a compelling story to tell. We're going to, with our whatever media we can, we're going to make people aware. The sustained engagement, working across the page, is a function of people wanting to get their discounts and also seeing results, participating in the program. Over time, as a function of today's social media, one person can equal 5 in a matter of days. So this is a digitally based program. On the majority of it's going to be digital. Of course, there's some traditional media involved. But we're going to rely on Facebook and Nextdoor apps and Google and other ways in our specific area to get this outreach started. If it's a movement, if you will. Okay. Regard to business recruitment, we've already reached out to local businesses to get participation. It's been virtually unanimous. I've talked to 15 businesses. They all say the same thing. Whatever we can do to help, within the bounds of good, fiduciary responsibility running a business, of course. Citizen participation, we'll be educating the community and approach citizen sign-ups and participation on lagoonloyal.com, the website where you sign up, you track your points, and you sustain your activities in the program. Once they get involved, they convert their actions into points. Members will be able to turn them in for free merchandise. Not free merchandise, but discounts. And then you convert your points to rewards, and the more Lagoon Loyal actions means more points to swap. Now, what is a Lagoon Loyal action? Okay. Well, let's go to business recruitment first. Again, we've used the phrase, let's be clear. And I will go in, we'll sign people up and let them know the benefits of the whole thing. But for anyone who's skeptical, for the businesses, we say that 77%, let me get my glasses on, 77% of the people will respond to coupons. So when you think of all the student cards that are out there, the Vieira High School, Satellite High, they're in your pocket. You carry it everywhere you go, and it becomes a discount.
There's an incentive for the businesses because 77% of the people who come in with coupons will spend another $10 to $15 more than normally they would spend. The coupon incentivizes them to spend more. So it's a win-win for the businesses. Not only do they get customers who continually come, they also get people who will increase their value of their check.
Yep. Time is wasted. Okay. So the businesses have a clear-cut advantage to getting involved in the program, and if one business is doing it, another business is not, the competitive analysis will they say, well, I got to get involved too. So we're not going to have a whole lot of trouble recruiting business based on our initial anticipation. Okay. The businesses will be able to select what type of discounts they want to apply. Some will be able to. You can stack your rewards. If you earn 40 points, you can get 20% off dinner. If you earn 80 points, you get a buy one, get one free. If you're 90 points, they can pick their own level, and they can change it at any time. And it's all trackable on this website. Okay. So when we will present this card to people, and if they're hesitant at first, then they can go to the website and sign up online. There's many opportunities to be involved. Citizen participation is just basically good old-fashioned marketing. Okay, we're going to have in-store signage for folks. They will have digital outreach with Google and remarketing and ad networking, SEO and link building throughout our site. The surveys were actually our first step to letting people know what's going on. It was a pretty intriguing response. I mean, a survey itself is almost an educational tool. With social media, with the Facebook ads and sponsored posts, and managing social presence, we're going to be involved in that. Nextdoor post, is everybody familiar with the Nextdoor app around here? It's pretty powerful, and it's also very free. You just mention something, next thing you know, the chain of events follows. With PR, I think whenever you ask somebody to call you, they call you right back and say, what do you have? And that's going to be easy to pretty much outreach. The media has already shown a distinct interest. Traditional media will have billboards, which I'll show you in a little while, quickly, utility inserts and print ads and specifically targeted media. We'll have merchandise available. There's events that people can go to with signages. They will have a Lagoon footprint quiz on that iPad. When you go to anything, you can just get to know what you know and become involved in Lagoon Loyal. And of course, we'll have email marketing campaigns. And email marketing will be all we're going to ask for is their name and their email address. There's no physical transaction. There's nothing except that. So we're building a database. The emails going out to them will be fairly consistent. So every time 2 or 3 businesses sign up, we'll note those people that these are now part of your Lagoon Loyal discount program. Okay. So that is the citizen participation. That's how we're going to reach them, and it goes in depth. The trick is to convert their actions to points. Okay. When you first start on, you just simply take your Lagoon footprint quiz. You'll earn 5 points. Or you can, if you earn 5 more points, you can refer a friend and get 5 points. And you can read a Lagoon-related article and post it. On the second, there's 4 ways to get action: convenience, effort, expense, and time. Okay. With effort, you can attend a Lagoon EDU event. You take a photograph of yourself there, you'll earn 10 points. You could you blow your clippings back into your lawn. Take a photograph. If you're doing that, you upload that to the photo, you'll register 10 points. Everybody's going to have their own dashboard, their own point counts, and their own signature, if you will, achievements. If you actually show native landscaping buffering your near a waterway, you get points. If you locate your own septic tank and you put a ruler in the ground, you take a photograph, you'll get points. There's a lot of ways to build this. We're just beginning the program, but the expense side is if you purchase a local native plant, that gives you 15 points. If you wash your car in a professional car wash, you earn 15 points. If you purchase pet-friendly waste bags, the ones that are biodegradable, you earn points. If you purchase a Lagoon Loyal vehicle soap, that helps. Something, I mean, it's not, doesn't hurt it. Okay. Purchase compliant fertilizer and so on. It just goes on and on. If you attend events, there's a lot of ways to earn points. I'm sensitive to your time, so I'm jumping around here. You convert points.
How much more time are you going to need? How much more time will you need?
I would say 5 minutes at best.
Okay.
Okay, I'm working. Okay. You convert the points to rewards. That's the local coupons there. They actually print them out from their computer in the first 3 months of the solution. And then after that, your iPhone will be able to handle that application. The full site will be done October 1st. Okay. This is just a sample where Fresh Step has done something similar, not exactly, but you earn points, you get rewards. So everybody's familiar with reward systems. This is the site map of the site. There's no way I can go through this whole thing given the allotted time, but on the home page you just basically talk, how do you sign up? What does it take to be Lagoon Loyal? I'm a business. Where do I participate? And you run some ads. You have your fertilizer aspects about the things you can do, what you can earn, the septic tank actions required, what you can earn, and so forth. The levels of your achievement will show up gradually, and you print out your points, and you're able to be your good Lagoon Loyal. Okay. We're going to be doing a basic version because we had to satisfy the equation of having a landing page for the retail fertilizer thing. So that will exist now, and it does the same basic thing, but you get a coupon, and it's not the full-blown thing, but at least it gives a landing page for the fertilizer people to go to when they want to learn more. Okay. Well, this is what the fertilizer signs will look like in the store. Let's be clear, a clean lagoon starts with fertilizer wisdom, and that's what it's going to look like, mounted next to the fertilizers. Okay. The landing page for each individual section. This is the general look of the site. Again, following the same format of clean water. Let's be clear. We're going to line those up in the beginning of May. We have employee fertilizer training mechanisms going out the week of the 20th. That's the week after next. That's going to include a video, plastic signs for their break room, and we'll hang the signage in the stores for the people involved. And that's about 50 or 60 retail stores. There'll be fertilizer training, which is we'll have a video we've developed to explain everything that happens regarding if you pour use of fertilizer. And then here's the important part. This is the digital outreach to the consumer and explains basically what we're trying to get accomplished. This will be geo-targeting messages throughout the county. If you live in the Brevard County, you have a phone, and you're anywhere near this, the core messages are, let's be clear. If you want to catch fish that you can actually eat, you have to do your part. Let's be clear. If you want your kids to swim in the river, you have to do your part. Let's be clear. If you want to see the bottom of the lagoon, you have to do your part. And let's be clear. If you want to protect your home's value, you have to do your part. And there's dozens of phrases we can put underneath let's be clear to reemphasize the message and get people to sign up to lagoonloyal.com. But that's the basic general outreach. This will be the billboards. The Clear Channels decide to be a pretty good partner. They're letting us rotate 4 to 6 billboards at a nominal fee. Same basic message. Let's be clear, be fertilizer free, pick them up for your pet, and schedule a septic checkup. The focus group we did, I'm not going to go through that as a function of time, but these are some of the responses we got. And this is our timeline. We are in May. We are on schedule. All the red in the middle is basically the development of the website itself. We're going to have an October 1st launch to get the whole Lagoon loyalty program underway. And given my time frame, thank you.
Melissa?
Do you have a K-12 outreach?
A K through 12 outreach?
Yes, to the students, the schools.
Is that for Schedule B?
Say again?
You can answer that question.
So we separated out the sort of, marketing side of things from the go to events, go to the schools, that human touch part. And so that piece was contracted with a Marine Resources Council.
Okay. Good.
Lorraine?
Yeah, and that leads into my question. So because we have numerous programs that exist by nonprofits, how do you plan to integrate those programs?
Everybody's working
Make sure
together.
that everyone's working together.
Yeah,
So
we've got...
are there coupon incentives through those programs? Because we have a lot of logos now.
Yes.
Well, it's all going to be one Lagoon Loyal. This is this program.
Okay.
The goal is to synergize all of our thinking and work and together, because we're going to try to capitalize on everything y'all have done. What y'all have left behind, or what you're still ongoing, is a lot of good work and a lot of significant research. And if you attend an MRC event, or if you go to any event for your Lagoon Coalition, you take a photograph of it, you just upload points. This is pure citizen-based incentive program to get people to keep going back and getting involved and staying involved. This is not just to plan anything, and it's just to build it all together.
Okay,
And so we need to have discussions.
If you have a Florida-friendly landscape, or if you have a lagoon-friendly landscape, I would imagine you get a lot of points.
You can get a lot of points. What's open for
Okay.
discussion is the ways we want creative suggestions on how to get those points. If you get, I think that was actually on there, but I was rushing to get through this
Okay,
thing.
sure.
If you get a KBB sign in your yard, that's probably worth 30 points.
Yeah,
And
so
the coupons last for 30 days.
those nonprofits and their constituents are probably a real target to get the word out, and you're communicating with them toward your launch, and
Yes.
that'll be a big part of it.
Yeah, we've just begun the process. This is 7 months of genesis on our end, just to create a system that somehow activates people and makes the citizenry actually do something for a reason. Let's be clear. If you don't do this, nothing's going to happen. All of the work's been done with all the surveys shown there's a lot of awareness of what the problem with the lagoon is. There's a lot of awareness that some things work and some things don't. The point of this is to bring it all together and have people a reason to get re-engaged. Am I saying this properly? I mean, yeah.
Participate.
Yeah, participate. We got to get citizens to do
understand.
something. They're going to get motivated by money. I mean, a lot of people care, but a lot of people want their reward program.
And it gives the businesses a way to get engaged too.
No, and it's great. It looks compelling. The only flag that goes up is all the different logos that we already have with all the different programs that we already have, and making sure that everyone's a part of this and
Oh, everyone will be a part of this. There's the website. I ran through the wireframe fairly rapidly as a bunch of time, but no stone will be left unturned. Everybody's effort will be rewarded. This is just a citizenry motivating badge for businesses to say, I'm Lagoon loyal. If you're KBB and you're MRC and everything else you do feeds into the same thing, the work will not be diminished, reduced, tolerated. It'll be coalesced.
I think it's a great idea. I think it'll work. So for the business owner, you said the coupons come out every 30 days. So is it a use it or lose it? If you accumulate your points and you don't use your coupon within 30 days,
It's like a normal coupon. It's not like
No,
that.
once you print it,
okay.
It's 30 days.
All right. And so then is the responsibility for turning in the points that somebody has used at your business, does that become the responsibility of the business owner? How do I keep somebody from coming in every week with their coupon?
well, honestly, there's two. I'm going to answer one quickly. There's nothing wrong with people coming back into your store.
True.
Now you go
But
with
they
it.
can't reuse the same points every time.
No, so once you download the coupon or print it, your points are deducted from the system.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they're
Right.
gone.
And then I keep the coupon with
You keep the coupon with
And
you.
they can't reprint another coupon then?
Well, it's got a 30-day expiration, so even if you do, it's the same expiration date.
You have found the fly in the ointment, and here's our answer to businesses on that, because we discussed that, I'd say last week. It was like, what about this? Well, you said this, actually you brought this up. The trick is, remember the student cards I was referring to? You want people, these are traffic builders. You're not giving away the store, you're getting people to come in and buy your products and do your services. A 10% discount is going to build traffic, and what she noted earlier is people spend more when they have a coupon. It's kind of a good thing for people to abuse the coupon, but they won't. But if they do, it's going to be there's a rare circumstance, and the merchant can call us and say, yank me out of the program. But we're going to make it very clear to them that once you're in, I mean, honor the coupon. Is it bad to have someone get 10% off of a steak sandwich?
No, but
See,
if somebody
that's-
comes in with 800 points and they qualify for 2 free dinners or something, you don't want them coming back every week with the same coupon.
If they earn 800 points on the Lagoon system, I'll buy them 2 free dinners. It's
But
not that.
you would only offer the 2 free steak dinners if you as a business wanted to offer steak free
That's
dinners.
right.
If you only want to offer 10% off coupons, then you only offer 10% off coupons. So that it should be self-regulating to that extent.
Okay, I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. It's
Todd?
I get that, but I mean, you've got a business owner with some mechanics that is bringing up some potential issues of where they may make a decision, they want to give away 2 free dinners, but for a certain number of points, and if there's not systems in place to avoid abuse within that time window, then it's a valid concern. So I just think we ought to make sure we do listen to some of the mechanics that you're hearing from a business owner, and see if there's not a way to address those. So I'd encourage us to understand those specifics.
Yeah.
You know, you can say it drives business, I'm sure it does, but in the same token, there's also a lot of these that get abused. And
Right.
so if the mechanics aren't there, then let's see if there's some solutions that can be offered that say, here's the type of control, because the technology solution should be such that you have some method of controlling multi-use on a coupon, or that once it's printed, there's a way to prevent it from being reprinted. I would just listen to what she's saying.
Oh, we do. We certainly do. The mechanics in place are as such that we're not encouraging anybody to offer something huge. first of all. Make it an enticement, not a giveaway. There is ways for the businesses to call us back and suspend participation immediately. The abuse is going to be rare, if ever, but we're going to make the owner aware that if something happens, you can do something about it.
Okay. Courtney?
I just wanted to make a comment. You know, we've been trying to figure out ways to engage the public like this and for a long time, and I think one of the biggest challenges, you know, when I talk to people about the lagoon, they ask, you know, what can I do? And trying to get that message across. So I think this is a fabulous idea.
Great.
And I think you guys have done a great job of putting it
Yes,
together.
you
And I
have.
really look forward to the launch. And so thank you. You guys did a good job.
My pleasure. And we're looking forward to it, too. It's been a labor of love.
One more, Vinny?
Two things. First off, wear the T-shirts. Because Lagoon Loyal, everybody in this area in this county love T-shirts. You see the MRC T-shirts, the Save Our Lagoon T-shirts. Long Doggers has their local T-shirts. I think that the T-shirts, and I know you mentioned merchandise, but I think that that's something that could really get you kick-started, either T-shirt giveaways or T-shirt for a cost, and I don't know what that money goes back into. So definitely I would say focus on some T-shirts. The second thing is the pictures that people take of themselves doing their activities and upload it to the website. Does that then stay on the website, or is that then used for marketing back into to increase the outreach?
That's an excellent point. I think we should put a disclaimer. You've got permission,
Correct,
but I think
yeah,
it's a great idea.
And I know some people might not want a picture of whatever they take to go out to Facebook or something, but I just thought if you're getting thousands and thousands of pictures of people doing good things, why don't we use that or find a way to use that
Yeah, something that
to
we
amplify
talked
the message?
It's something that we talked about. We're working on the permission structure right now. Like if you upload we're working on with legal to get what exactly we need to say to be able to use those photos or an opt-out.
Okay.
Okay, one more last question.
Thank you.
Here all day.
Because I really want to understand, how would a municipality participate? How could they be a champion with this program? Have you thought about that yet?
Well, the Schedule B campaign, or Tax B, we already are using the "Let's be clear" phrase on all the giveaways. We're giving away clear cups, let's be clear. We're giving little pinky rings, let's be clear for the kids. What else are we giving away?
What else did I
The
get?
pinky promise.
Stickers.
Yeah, stickers, let's be clear. The let's be clear phrase is going to fly everywhere. Municipalities are,
Getting those
we're going to give them the materials.
To give away, yeah,
Thank
at
you.
events.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing a bunch of different collateral with the Let's Be Clear and the logo message. So we'll be giving away at different events around the county. And each county, each of the 7 or 8 counties are designated a quantity to give away.
And are you
Or
suggesting
cities.
events that they could do,
It's for
that they could take on and do?
We had not planned that. We figured that they would do it at their own events.
Yeah. We're, to say that we're at it's kind of funny to say we've been working on something for 7 months, but we're finally authorized to get some decent thinking, and this is what the coalition's about. I mean, ideas are going to make this thing roll, because anyway, one of the most important things for everybody to do is post on your own Facebook post and boost yourselves and let it grow from there. This is going to be an organic explosion within the confines of Brevard County. We're going to try and make it so you can't you can't pick up your phone without seeing a "Let's Be Clear" message on there. I mean, it's going to drive you nuts. But it's strong enough to concept.
Just a tiny one, just a really short. I'm hoping that, because I have kids, and I think it's important to buy stuff with the campaign, but let's be cognizant of the materials that we use in what we're ordering for that, and that we're not buying more trash that ends up in the lagoon. Right.
That was interesting, 'cause we had something that was just going to, you said, it's just going to get torn up and put in the lagoon.
Okay, thank you very much. And
Thank you very much.
anybody else who wants to contact you, you're local, they could actually give you a call on the phone. They could stop by and see you, I'm sure, and offer ideas if they'd like. Okay, you're
That
in
would be wonderful.
Satellite Beach, right?
Yes, just right around the
That's
corner.
very local. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, next up on the agenda, Lisa Souto from MRC talking about the using science to guide educational communications.
Hi, everybody. How are you? It's good to be here. Thank you.
There it is. Let me just start from
the beginning, and we're good. Thanks for having me here today. My name's Lisa Souto. I'm the Executive Director of the Marine Resources Council. MRC is a nonprofit that has been striving to protect the Indian River Lagoon since the early 1980s. We were started by a group of FIT professors, and we are still very vigilant about using science to guide policy, education. The research that we're doing is meaningful to guide strategies for saving the lagoon. I'm really happy to be here to talk about the outcomes of the grass clippings research that we initiated with funding from the Citizens Oversight Committee. I think it was approved about a year ago. We've been working with a couple of other counties, Martin County and Volusia County, and coordinating, attempting to do really a lagoon-wide, truly lagoon-wide, 5-county-wide campaign that everybody can then share resources, build capacity, and extend the reach of a single message. I want to recognize my cohort and colleague in crime, Dorian Morgan with Uppercase Inc. She assisted with the research, and she provided some of these slides for me. Before I go into that, I want to show you a graph of something. This is what we want to see. We want to see behavior change that looks like this. So we remember, some of us at least, that there was a time when nobody wore seatbelts. And now pretty much everybody wears seatbelts. And that was accomplished by data-driven strategies. That when they first started implementing regulations to require seatbelts, they thought, everybody's going to start wearing them now, and guess what? Nobody wore seatbelts after regulations were implemented because they were inconvenient, because they didn't think they were going to get in an accident. So that was the first message, was save lives, put your seatbelt on. So you get in your car and you're like, I'm not going to get in an accident today, so I'm fine. So nobody wore their seatbelts. So that resulted in mandating additional enforcement. And then the Click It or Ticket campaign, which was a social marketing effort, started in 1993, and the world changed. So when they started letting people know, it wasn't about saving lives, it was about you're going to get a fine, then people started wearing their seatbelts. So the initial message was, save lives, wear your seatbelt. Nobody did. When they realized that, hey, nobody's wearing seatbelts, they implemented regulations, they started enforcing those regs. It's called the Click It or Ticket. Message was received, and people started wearing their seatbelts, and now we're approaching 90% of people are wearing seatbelts. They also did some other, this was driven really by insurance. They wanted to reduce their cost, but they also wanted to save lives. The rest of us wanted to save lives. So they started putting those reminders in cars. So even as early as 1995, there was still like 7% of the public that wasn't wearing their seatbelt. So they're like, we're going to put those bells in and just, antagonize people to death until they put their seatbelt on, right? So there's still people like my stepfather who will not put a seatbelt on, and he'll fight the car and be like, shut up, I'm not putting on my seatbelt. So there's still those people out there. But that's the concept of understanding behavior change. Who is doing it? Why are they doing it? How do we get that person? And then there's still going to be 7% like my stepfather who, regardless of what you do, he's not putting on his seatbelt because you can't make him put his seatbelt on, period. So that's what the research is driving for. Accomplishing behavior change means understanding your audience that intimately, understanding who they are, how many of them are in each of those segments, working that one segment. These are the people that do it because it's the law and they know it's the law. These are the people who are going to do it because it's the right thing to do for the lagoon. These are the people who are going to do it because it's a regulatory requirement and they might get a fine. People are motivated differently to do behavior. So quantifying who those people are is key to making that graph. If there's no numbers here, there's no graph. You need to know what was it before and how are things improving over time. And the only way to do that is to collect those population data. Measuring behavior change. So I talked about understanding what people are doing in that intimate way. Why are they doing what they're doing? Why are they not doing it? What are the alternative behaviors? And how difficult is it to get that person to adopt the behavior you want them to adopt? And then ultimately, we want to know how much is pollution going to be reduced as a result. So when you start to quantify the numbers of people, so we were able to successfully quantify how much fertilizer is not going into Tampa Bay's waters because of their fertilizer ordinance, because we quantified how many people are applying fertilizer, how many pounds are they applying to their lawns every year, and then when we showed that the reduction, then we could show the load reduction. If you don't have those numbers, you can't show a load reduction, an actual environmental impact. Understood? So there's a couple different methods. You heard about a couple of these. Surveys are for collecting those quantifiable numbers you can do some neat analyses with. Focus groups are about qualitative assessment. That's where the intimate conversations come in, where you can ask people why or what would it take. Interviews, more of that qualitative information, and observational studies are where you can get to the, are we actually seeing people pick up their pet waste? Are we actually seeing, this is the real information you want to is see a behavior change occur. The choice of method depends on what you're trying to accomplish in your research and, of course, on your population size. Now, going to grass clippings. We know grass clippings are a major problem, that they can cause structural damage to stormwater infrastructure, causing flooding and increased maintenance costs. They can end up in the lagoon, of course, where they can cause muck. They can be broken down by bacteria that are going to potentially result in algae blooms and fish kills, and they create a hazard on the roads. And we know that we pass laws to try to get people to not continue to leave their grass clippings on the road, and that those laws aren't necessarily working. So we were invited to initiate a grass clippings campaign, and this was what we proposed to do a year ago, was to start investigating those target audiences, figure out which behaviors we're dealing with and which one we're going to focus on, identify the barriers and benefits to that behavior, and develop a strategy and start coming up with some conceptual ideas and pre-test those items. So we started with an observational study to try to understand what are people doing, what does it look like out there, who's doing what, why are people doing things that they're doing, and start to create, to create the survey, the quantitative tool that will be used. So this is an image of a really scary looking road. See, I don't know how well you can see the grass clippings, but the two guys down at the end there are debating. They're waiting for the traffic. They're actually professional crew waiting for the traffic so they can blow the grass clippings back up onto the lawn. So what we saw was that people were leaving clippings on impervious surfaces. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes they were blowing them there, which is different. So if you unintentionally leave grass clippings, that's a different behavior than somebody blowing grass clippings off the lawn into the street, right? That they were leaving them in canals, and that they were also intentionally blowing them in canals. So two slightly different behaviors, but some things for like unintentional things, you almost have to sometimes use a structural, there might be a different strategy to deal with an unintentional consequence than you would with an intentional perceived behavior. What we want them to do is to blow, these are the non-polluting behaviors, so we did see people blowing the clippings back on the lawn. This is what we decided was the behavior we wanted to encourage. We also saw people sweeping clippings, which you could use that as your imagery, but and then we know that people were also bagging from our survey. We know people were bagging. We didn't observe people bagging clippings. So the results of that, and really what you want to do with your qualitative information is create the response set in your surveys. So when somebody asks you a question, you want to make sure you've got all of the possible answers present in the survey, or else you're going to end up with a bunch of, either they're going to guess a different answer, or you're going to have a bunch of others. So we conducted an online survey. We got 733 valid responses, which is a pretty good confidence interval. The survey was incentivized with a $50 gift card. Incentivizing a survey like that makes it more representative because everybody wants money. So we got a really good representative sample, and the goals were to understand what people were currently doing, get that baseline information, and then a little bit about what their belief structure is about grass clippings that might assist with messaging, and then test a couple of conceptual designs. Survey is not the best way to test designs. It's better to do that face-to-face, but we attempted to do a few tests. Our demographics are here. They are not terribly skewed from the representative survey data. We could weight data if we wanted to make any kind of meaningful assertions about the representativeness of our response set. 59% female, so our survey demographics in 3 county, a little more female than the norm, a little less Caucasian than the norm, and about the right number of residential dwellers. We did target both homeowners who were doing their own landscaping and professional landscapers with the survey. So there were about 70 questions, so I'm going to do them all one by one. No, I only put a couple of them on here that I thought were the most important. So one of the really, really key, now this question right here, who's responsible for your landscape, is key to understanding everything about landscape maintenance. Everything. So your fertilizer campaigns, you need to know how many people are fertilizing their own lawn, how many people are hiring a professional. 2 different, totally different strategies are needed there. So who is it that's maintaining, doing the majority of landscaping? In Volusia County, it was about 50% of people were doing their own. In Brevard, about 50% people are doing their own landscaping. In Martin County, 41%. So we've got more professional landscapers in Martin County. Interesting. What are people currently doing about grass clippings on the road? So about 25% are always or usually leaving them where they land. So this is that I'm just mowing, it lands on the road, and it's sitting there. They're not intentionally blowing them on the road. They're not intentionally blowing them off the road. They're just like, I'm done mowing, go in the house and have a beer now. Just going to leave them, they're just going to sit there. So blowing them into the yard, 70% of respondents are doing that. Blowing them into the road, hardly anybody is, 94% or seldom or never doing that. Blowing them toward the storm drain, 97% are never or seldom doing that. Raking them and back into the yard, it's those sweeping people, that there are these rakers and sweepers. Almost half of the people are doing it that way. Collecting them and bagging them, about 20% or so are doing it that way. And blowing them toward the water, 3% admitted that they actually do that. Beliefs about lawn clippings. So the next couple of slides, so this was everybody together, and these are separated into landscape professionals and the residents, so you can see the variation. Because part of the survey was we were trying to figure out who to target. Should we be targeting the professionals or should we be targeting residents? Part of that is that number, who do we have more of? Part of it is that what are they currently doing? How hard is it going to get them to change question that we're kind of always weighing when we decide how to proceed with a strategy. So so here we have a belief, grass clippings left on the road can be harmful to our water quality. So who believes that? Actually, if you add up the first two columns, the greens and the blues are strongly agree and agree. If you add those up, it's about the same percentage of both professionals and residents. 31% of both of these audience don't realize that grass clippings are harmful. That's a trigger for messaging that may assist to motivate some people who are actually environmentally concerned to change behavior. This one is really key, we think, for changing professional behaviors. They believe it looks bad to leave grass clippings on the road. So these guys and ladies are probably more concerned about their professional appearance than they are about that other, harmful to the water quality concept. So messaging to them might sound more like, let's be clear. Leave your, get your grass clippings off of the street. You don't look professional if you leave them there. Grass clippings can provide natural fertilizer. So whether people understood this or not was important. And again, the green and the blue bars are the strongly agree. So these are the people that understand this concept. And you can see again that we've got high percentage of both landscape professionals and residents who believe that natural fertilizer can be good for, that lawn clippings can be good for the lawn in the form of natural fertilizer. Okay, so then, another important part, besides constructing the message and understanding the complexity of what's driving people to do what they're doing, is how do you get the message to them? So we asked a series of questions about, what's the best way to reach you, and who's the best messenger for you? Because some people don't want to hear from government. Some people don't want to hear from nonprofits. Some people want to hear from their own peers. So understanding that. So this breakdown, and I know it's really hard to see on the screen, I'm sorry to those of you in the audience. I'll try to. So it starts from left to right with TV and radio. Unfortunately, TV is a great communications channel, by the way. Very, very expensive. So TV, radio, website, billboards, and then local home improvement or lawn maintenance is the orange bar. The landscape professionals like that, being notified at the home improvement stores. They spend a lot of their day there. Utility bill inserts, the homeowners like that. So that's good because those are very inexpensive. And it looks like residents like to be communicated with through those means. The next one is newspaper, residents preferred. Through an HOA newsletter, information mailed directly was another relatively high, 139% of residents. Social media, really inexpensive. But I have to caution the interpretation of this result because this survey was done online. So you're dealing with people who are on social media already. So it's going to be a little different from the general population. So again, the representative nature of the sample. Pinterest and other web-based products. Who's the trusted messenger? So of these two audiences, from left to right, green is local government. So this is good news that residents would receive a message on grass clippings from local government readily. They're happy with that. Landscape professionals would really prefer to hear it from another landscape professional. So in your strategies and your marketing, dress somebody up like a landscape professional in the ad. So it looks like the message is coming from themselves. Or partner with the University of Florida or IFAS or somebody that already has that kind of partnership with the landscape professionals. Master gardener was specified. A neighbor, HOA is the blue bar, the homeowners association. Local home improvement stores. Nonprofit organizations, yay! And then regional, state, or federal government is the brown bar, and then others. So the top messengers that they would trust were local government, themselves, of course, everybody trusts themselves, regional, state, or federal governments, and nonprofits, yay! We also did a little logo testing. I mentioned that logo testing, using a survey for this isn't the best way to do it, but we went ahead because we were doing it online. We could put the digital logos up there. We asked our respondents, which one do you like the most in general? Which one would encourage you to keep grass clippings off the road? And which one would encourage you to keep grass clippings out of the water? And this is the order that they came up in. They were super close. So we're going to continue teasing out some of these logos because there were kind of comments on each of them. Could this one be changed to this? Could this be called this? And so on. Target audiences that were revealed by this were professionals and residents equally. Tertiary target audience would be the municipal crews that are doing landscaping for cities and counties. And the behavior would be to focus on the blowing grass clippings back onto the lawn, not try to get more people to broom or rake. Use a blower. Barriers and benefits that, just in summary, that came out of it was the biggest barriers to people doing this were lack of knowledge of grass clippings as a pollutant, potentially, for those who care about that. People who don't care how it looks. And that there's the professionals, in Peru where I put pros, that was a unique barrier for professionals, was that in some cases getting the grass clippings out of the road could be hazardous to their health, the traffic and so on. It's really bad. Biggest benefits were that natural fertilizer, that these things could be something good, turn something bad into something good, that it prevents algae blooms was acknowledged, and again with professionals they're more about the appearance and that tidiness factor. We want the roads to look tidy, we want it to look like a professional, and we did our job and got all of the clippings off the road. This is the first conceptual idea that came out, highlighting the good, the beneficial nutrient, and discouraging the bad. This first conceptual piece, the message is, your curb is the fine line between grass clippings making your yard healthier and grass clippings polluting our waterways, blow clippings back onto the grass where they become natural fertilizer. And the next steps is we're going to start producing more of these conceptual ideas based on the strategies that were illuminated by the research. We're going to go back to focus groups and do a couple of focus groups here in Brevard. We've got 2 focus groups in place up in Martin, and coordinating the counties so we can continue to share resources on this, build capacity, and have a single message. And I thank you. I wanted to make sure that this was on the screen for those at home to remember that summer's coming. If you're going to fertilize your lawn, you need to do it now with 50% slow release, and do it when we're not expecting a heavy rain event. And that's all I got. Do you have any questions? Thank you so much.
Questions? Looks like everybody's good.
Excellent. Everybody's ready to go.
Okay, before we go on to the next presentation, does anybody need a break? Do we need to take a break? So 10 minutes break. Be back in 10 minutes, so that's 10:30. Okay, next up on the agenda, we have Joe Faella from the Mosquito Control. Is going to give us a presentation. Joe?
So while we get Joe's PowerPoint up, I was fortunate enough to be able to make the hiring decision to bring Joe to Brevard County some years ago. He worked for Volusia County Mosquito Control, then he went to work for Dredging Marine Contractors, and then we brought him here in our stormwater program where he was leading the water quality group, and then moved over to Mosquito Control where he was leading the environmental group at Mosquito Control before becoming the Mosquito Control Director. And
the mosquito control director before Joe, Chris Richmond, also moved up through that environmental side of the mosquito control house. And so Brevard County's been very fortunate to have mosquito control led by folks who have the environment, in the tip of their brain. So with that, I'll hand it over to Joe.
All right. Thank you, Virginia, and thank you for inviting me here today. The Mosquito Control Department employs an integrated mosquito management approach. It's the industry standard. And our environmental stewardship is very important to us. But of course, we have to maintain a balance. Our duties are also with public health, and we're bound by the state and the taxpayers to abide by that. So in the first slide here, there's a little picture of the mosquito life cycle. And so that basically what that means to us is we have various opportunities to utilize our resources to manage mosquitoes, not just by spraying, but by looking at all the different stages of the life cycle, and of course in all the diverse habitat you find here in Brevard County. So there are over 3,500 species worldwide of mosquitoes, 82 documented in the state, and we get at least 40 mosquitoes just here in Brevard County. When you move from county to county, there's a slight shift of species. You see almost the same species in the neighboring counties and so on. But again, various habitat, everything from a little bottle cap or a potato chip bag, you'll find larvae in a yard, all the way up through marshes and of course the lagoon. Not out in the open water though, it's always on the fringes and the grassy areas where the fish and other predators can't get to the mosquito larvae. So real quick, just looking at some of the pictures, this is mosquito control. These are mosquito egg rafts. Each raft has about 200 eggs, and this is under a microscope. So really these are no bigger than, say, a sunflower seed piece. So if you can imagine each one 200 eggs, they hatch, they start spreading around in where they are. They grow through 4 different instars or molts as larvae, and while they're in the water, they're feeding, they're getting much bigger, much healthier. They do need to stay near the surface of the water to breathe air through their siphon, so they can dip down underwater for a little while, but they have to come back up. But this is the time frame when they're very isolated and condensed to a small area. So again, we look for opportunities. It's a lot easier to figure out where they are now than once they start flying. Once they get to this pupal stage, they're just getting ready to become flying adults, in which case they stand on top of you take advantage of the surface tension of the water and let their wings dry and their exoskeletons harden. And then they're off in the air, biting and potentially spreading diseases. So a little bit of history on mosquito-borne diseases. Florida was once, it was contemplated whether or not it was inhabitable because of the mosquito problem. This area was part of the larger Mosquito County, and the state has undergone various time frames of the malaria belt up in the northern part of the state. Yellow fever epidemics, and here's a graphic that I had gotten from the Department of Agriculture, and it basically shows how the mosquito is considered the world's deadliest animal. If you were curious how they compare to hippopotamus deaths or something, this is your slide. So, but there are a lot of things you can compare, but by far they are responsible for the most human deaths. And I just clicked out of here, I think. We are currently dealing with all of these diseases in the state. We do see regularly, in a typical year, we will see 1 or 2 of these diseases in the county. But what we try to do is prevent them from getting to humans and horses, and But we see West Nile virus, St. Louis encephalitis, dengue, Zika, Eastern equine encephalitis, chikungunya, and dog heartworm. Those are all common and things that we look out for. So again, back to the habitats. This is a viable habitat. We get lots of calls And the call is usually consists of someone just telling us we need to spray. And what we do is inform them that we need to come and look and and assess their property. We actually aren't allowed to just spray. So we go out, and a good percentage of the time they're breeding their own mosquitoes, very aggressive container breeding mosquitoes right around their property. So we kind of educate them and assist them in dumping containers and dealing with abandoned pools and things like that. And on a larger scale, we go to commercial sites. We educate people along the way. The trunks full of water are loaded with larvae. We've done aerial assessments, and then we've gone down and basically knocked on their doors and see if we can do to convince them to drain those trunks and things. Cemeteries, it's a little harder. You can't do as much there because you have a lot of vases and stuff, but there are a lot of containers that have been there for quite a while, so we educate cemetery staff on that. Waste tires, unfortunately, tires are a great producer of mosquitoes. They provide a source of holding water, but also just a total shelter, shade, everything. And these mosquitoes are very aggressive. They stay in close proximity to the source. And you have sometimes abandoned tire shops like here down below, right next to a residential area. And it's something that we deal with on a regular basis. So our staff, when we can't figure out who's responsible, we just go ahead and pick up tires. We average about 90 tons a year, sometimes up to 170 tons, looking at over the last 6 years. And we work with natural resources staff, code enforcement, DEP, to try to get fines assessed to kind of, encourage people to get rid of those tires. So that's basically, the term source reduction is what we're talking about here. Getting rid of the source of the mosquito breeding, and then there are no treatments needed. But on a much larger scale, we have what's very significant here in Brevard County, mosquito impoundments. We maintain 28,000 acres of mosquito impoundments. They were built in the 1950s and 1960s with the idea that, well, salt marsh mosquitoes are the most aggressive and predominant in this area. We have two main species of them called Aedes tenurincus and Aedes sollicitans. And they will only lay their eggs, though, in the mud, in the dry sediment. They will not lay their eggs in the water. So what they figured out was if they artificially impound these shallow areas, they basically lose lots of egg-laying opportunities. So that's billions and billions of eggs that just aren't even laid in the first place. And we estimate that from trapping and over the years that this should reduce our mosquitoes that we have to deal with by at least 50%. So this is significant for us. So what we do is maintain these and we improve them. We partner with the Department Natural Resources as well as St. Johns River Water Management District and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we add lots of culverts. So that these are connection points, so that when we have to hold the water between the spring and the fall, we hold the water, we maintain those levels. But when we don't need to hold it, we would rather just let the water circulate with the lagoon and let fish exchange happen and everything. Biological control. Well, I'm happy to say that we are increasing our mosquito fish capabilities. We've always had kind of a small koi pond, and we would move mosquito fish, native mosquito fish, gambusia, from ditch to ditch. When they start filling up with rain, you might have an isolated pocket, and those mosquitoes are going to lay eggs and come off in a week, and the fish just can't get there in time. Wait a couple more weeks, yeah, maybe the fish will get there, but now we've just we let a lot of mosquitoes go. So this enhances that and capability, and we can go ahead and start stocking fish in the places where the water hadn't quite reached yet. And also, people, once they learn that we can do this, they actually will call, and we'll go and assess and see if they need it. A lot of times they feel like that's the source of their mosquito problem. Turns out it's a pond, there's already fish, and then that's our invitation to look in their yard and tell them that it's actually the containers. So. And then, of course, the pesticides. Basically, we have different types of pesticides. They're all Environmental Protection Agency approved. There's nothing that we use that is not registered by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. They actually evaluate all of these products periodically and ensure that they don't pose an unreasonable risk to human health or the environment. So these biopesticides or biorational larvicides are actually derived of natural materials, animal, plant, bacteria, certain minerals. They're more environmentally preferred, and it helps because it's very much more targeted. We can target based on, you saw the picture of the larvae all clumped together, we can target those areas before they fly out, and they're harder to control as adults. And again, and one thing I wanted to mention, that all of our applicators that use these products have maintained a license from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Public Health. And then we have the chemical adulticides. This is for the mosquitoes that basically get away. The last resort, and now it's time. We've missed them in the water. They've gotten out. They're flying. We're getting complaints. Again, that may or may not cause us to spray, but we've confirmed the adults. What we do is to minimize the impacts. We wait at least a half hour after sunset to reduce the potential impacts to pollinators especially. We utilize, the modern system is an ultra-low volume system. It delivers microscopic droplets at doses of only 0.6 to an ounce per acre, depending if we're talking about aircraft or the trucks. We have navigation systems with GPS. We account for drift. We account for wind, rain. The label tells us what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. But yeah, if we don't spray in a storm, for instance, or even a little bit of rain. And this is some of the testing we do, calibration and testing. If you can see, there are little droplets. They're microscopic droplets. The label specifies what is appropriate for mosquitoes, and we maintain those specifications throughout the season. And we do some other testing to make sure the chemicals still work. Of course, if they don't work, there's no reason to use them. We go to something else. But this is all based off of the monitoring that we do for mosquitoes and diseases. So we abide by the Chapter 388 Florida statute and 5E13 FAC to conduct all the activities that we do based on trap counts. And this next slide shows a little bit more the surveillance. We have various traps around the county, and there's a threshold. In this case, you have to have at least 25 mosquitoes in a trap night in order to spray. We keep records of that. We can be audited any time by the state, and we absolutely don't stray from that. Here's just a picture. This is a New Jersey trap. It's light powered. This is a CDC trap. It's also light powered, and then we also add often the dry ice, which gives off carbon dioxide. And between the carbon dioxide and we have human scent baits, it appears to be a living, breathing mammal or human, and it helps us bring in mosquitoes that are more pertinent to our cause. So when we get all those trap cups in, we identify them to species, we count them. Sometimes it's just a few mosquitoes, sometimes it's like this, a few thousand, and we make a determination of where we need to spray, if we need to spray. Another tool that we have that's very important are the sentinel chickens. The chickens are immune to the mosquito-borne viruses, so that's a good thing for us. We can get weekly blood samples, send them to the state. The health department evaluates and tells us if they're seeing West Nile or St. Louis encephalitis and such. And they develop the antibodies to attack the antigens in their system. So we just take care of the chickens, basically, get their blood, and then once a year we actually give them away to local, usually farms or people who take care of the coops in the first place with large property. This is a map of the sites just to show the general distribution. So 11 coops, 6 birds per coop. And last but not least, educational outreach. As I've mentioned already, we educate people at every step of the way, every opportunity we get. All our staff are so used to talking about what we do and what they can do to help that this is incorporated in our regular work. because in fact the mosquitoes that people are concerned about, the most recent popular being Zika, these are the backyard mosquitoes. These are the ones that actually prefer the containers, and they stay very close to the yard, and they're very aggressive. They get inside, and we show them graphics like this, just cartoon graphics of dumping tires and buckets and things, repairing their screens, and we might, wearing repellent. But we also take the opportunity to talk to their kids at summer camps and schools, and then they can go home and nag their parents about cleaning up the yard. And it seems to work very well. The kids take us very serious. And we also go to home stores. We'll educate people going in and out there. And we do lots of outdoor activities and things like that. And just at a glance, this is just to show our outreach calendar for 2018. Every year we've been expanding our outreach. So we're really pushing right now to expand our outreach and our hatchery further to work out the integrated management that I spoke about. And with that, see if you have any questions.
Questions? Lorraine?
So, you did spraying this year in all the municipalities, or just certain municipalities received a letter asking for their permission to do that spraying? And did it?
All the municipalities
All the municipalities
were required by the FAA to send the letter out for approval to spray.
And how many times have you sprayed, or is it just once at a certain time of year?
It completely depends on whether or not we reach that threshold of mosquitoes in the trapping, and whether it's significant. If we have a bunch of 100 species that say don't bite humans, we're not concerned.
Okay.
But if especially if there's a virus, like last year, West Nile was big, and Tripoli, Eastern Equine, very big. So we took that into consideration, and that made our determinations. These mosquitoes are more generalist. They don't necessarily bite humans, but they could. But now these are vectors of those diseases. Now we're going to take it more serious. If not, we leave them alone.
So are those findings what trigger the letter and then the spraying?
The letter is just an FAA requirement to have on file.
Okay,
and then
so you just do that every
we
year as a
spray
standard.
according to our need
Right.
for the next couple of years. Yeah.
So I think this year we didn't have much of a winter. So does that
Right.
mean that we have more of a mosquito issue?
We've been concerned. We saw West Nile at the beginning of the season in 2018. Toward the middle of the season, we were really picking up on Eastern Equine, and then it dropped off. We weren't getting Eastern Equine actually in this county. It was all our neighboring counties, and we were trying to do everything we could to help keep it from coming here, whether or not that made a difference. And then it kind of tapered off, and we had West Nile, and that went right through the winter, longer than normal because we had such a mild winter. And the last time we detected West Nile in a chicken was in January. But since then, it's tapered off. Neighboring counties, we watch all the neighboring counties to see what we can expect for this county.
So did we actually have a spraying treatment?
Oh yes, we've had some spraying already.
Okay, and so, well, I'm asking because when this letter goes before council, I don't recall seeing anything about whether it was biopesticides or a chemical treatment. And so I'm just trying to, as a citizen, understand. So during the night, does somebody come through and spray us all, or does this happen at a particular time? Do we get any warning when it's happening? Does it spray the lagoon?
The nighttime, we'd spray at night with the chemical adulticides. Those are the actual chemicals. We don't target the waterways. We account for drift. We have this AgNav software on the aircraft to account for drift. So there's an offset, so we can estimate, where to fly and then where the droplets are going to wind up, things like that. So we don't target the lagoon. These droplets, though, like I said, they were so small, and what does reach the ground, there's such a short residual time. By starting a half hour after sunset, giving the pollinators enough time to go in, but then going ahead and giving all night before people are more active, that's kind of the best we can do to kind of balance that public health and environmental concerns. So that's our approach. The aircraft has the ability to do both adulticide and larvicide. Larviciding is done during the day.
Okay.
Because that doesn't affect what's flying in the air.
Okay, and the larvicide is the biopesticide?
That's yes.
Okay.
Let me add, they upgraded the atomizers. You mentioned the droplet size. A couple years ago, they went to the latest, greatest. So the idea is to make the droplet, I mean, when everything else has failed and you have adult flying mosquitoes carrying disease that are at thresholds, you know, that are unacceptable, and it's a human health concern, that's when they fly with the adulticides. But if the droplet size, by using the smallest possible droplet size that will affect the mosquito, they're trying to get it down to a size that is too small to hurt bees, for instance, that might still be out flying around, right? They wait till after dark when the butterflies and most of the other pollinators have, you know, gone to bed under a leaf, whatever, they're protected. So they're doing everything they can to minimize impact to other species, but provide public health.
And that answers everybody's question about whether we control love bugs, I would say, because they're out during the day and they're larger than mosquitoes, so we wouldn't be able to have the droplets that large or spray at those times when they're active. So we've gotten a lot of calls about love bugs. And we're not doing experiments with them either. Just wanted to...
My car's gotten most of them. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Joe? Thanks, Joe.
All right, thank you.
Okay, there's no old business, new business. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Health. And is Anthony going to do that, or Virginia?
Yeah, Anthony's going to do that, and we passed this out this morning. We've had a few requests from different committee members about, you know, providing some draft motion, and so I thought about just typing that up on a slip of paper, and then decided, you know, maybe we should try sort of a proper agenda item that describes what the action is for. So Anthony will explain what's going on, but then you have a draft motion to consider.
All right. Yeah, so some background for the new members. We have the septic upgrade portion of the plan, and if you go back to the original iteration of the plan, you'll see that it was advocating these upcoming passive systems. So most septic tanks that you know of are a passive system, gravity fed. Currently, to meet a 65% reduction or a high percent of nitrogen reduction, the best options are powered. They use aeration and circulation, but they also require operation and maintenance permits from the Department of Health, regular maintenance and inspections by your septic company or agent. Definitely increases the cost. It's no longer a leave and forget about it idea, and not everyone's comfortable with that. But the Department of Health finally came through with one of their passive systems, and it was using wood chips underneath the drain field to minimize the nitrogen that would make it to the groundwater. However, those with experience in stormwater are hesitant to use wood chips in an area where they would be exposed to oxygen, because they're just going to decompose, potentially provide more nitrogen to the groundwater. There's not much data to show the effectiveness of this, and we have asked the Department of Health that they be willing to look at other types of media. These are media that we use in other stormwater contraptions and situations. So they agreed, they're willing to work with us, and they want to do a memorandum of understanding to move forward. Just everyone's on board how we're going to move forward. We're taking this memorandum of understanding to the County Commission next Tuesday, the 21st, and we wanted to bring with that the recommendation by the COC. So we have a requested action on this piece of paper, and with the sample motion of what, of if you agree with this concept, that we could be able to take to sit on the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, Stephanie?
I move that we recommend approval to the Brevard County Commission for the memorandum of understanding with the Florida Department of Health to evaluate alternative nitrogen-reducing media for septic drain fields.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion and second. Any discussion? Terry?
So you made the point that the BAM that we're recommending here to be evaluated is material that's currently being used in baffle boxes?
Yes, battle boxes and other upload filters and everything.
I skimmed this briefly, and so maybe it's in the details and I missed it, but this motion, which I think we're just about to vote on, doesn't make that point.
Yeah.
The memorandum of understanding does.
It's a much more, this is like the first step in getting permission from the county commissioners to make this agreement with the Department of Health to move forward.
Okay, I stand corrected. I see it does say media used, currently used in stormwater systems, so I guess that goes far enough in terms of
And we're
whether
not,
it's Bold and Gold or some other, whatever.
and yes, whatever is already proven denitrification media. And that's what we're taking to the Department of Health. These have been proven in these other
No,
situations.
I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
I had a question, Dr. Winter. It says that the cost is coming from the COC money, or the trust fund money, right? And that's $2,600 per site, or 20, I looked per, so how many sites are we going to have?
The MOA is for up to 50.
Okay.
So it will depend on how many providers of these different alternative media come forward and want to participate in this study, and how many of those are willing to work within our budget, our approved half-cent sales tax plan budget, but up to 50. In negotiations with the Department of Health in terms of statistical design, how many systems using a specific media do we need to implement and monitor for how long, how often, how much data do we need to be able to convince the state that this media works and should be eligible for standard permitting by the Department of Health. They want at least 4 successful systems. So, if you think, okay, well, things can go wrong, and we've seen this in other studies around the state, you set everything up with your house, everything's good, and then something goes wrong in that family, in that household, and they move out, and people aren't living there, producing waste, and so your study is invalid. So folks may want to put in a couple extra, more than 4, so that when we get to the end of the 4 quarters of monitoring, they have an answer that is good enough for the Department of Health to move on that information. So this would authorize, up to probably 10 different media types. I don't know that there are 10 different media out there that people will want to test, but.
And then is that just, that's coming from the monitoring money, or from the money from the septic?
The
tank
installation cost would come from, these would go to locations that we've already prioritized in the plan as being the most important sites to upgrade. They're not feasible for connection to
Right.
sewer because they're isolated or, for whatever reason. But they are loading a lot to the lagoon. And so we were going to upgrade them anyway, rather than upgrading them to a mulch system that might decompose.
That will decompose.
We would like to test an alternative media instead. So that budget's already in the plan, it's already approved. Then the monitoring cost, the collection of the samples,
Yeah.
sending those samples to the labs, that would come out of the Respond budget.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else with questions or comments?
Just one question, I'm sorry I had to step out for quite a while, but would that biochar be a suitable alternative?
We're looking into it. I was in discussion with the Department of Health yesterday asking about biochar, if anyone's proposed that, and they have thought about it, and they want to think more. They don't know how, they conceptually cannot see how, so we would have to prove that it's already denitrification media and bring it forward in this model.
Just, and this is, I completely think this is a great direction forward. As you're having the discussions, I would just ask, please think about what the enforcement long-term looks like as well, because while it's excellent to reduce the O&M requirements, but it still has O&M requirements, just over a longer time horizon. So figuring out what that looks like so that we don't just build another cliff that's 15 years out, that all of a sudden we don't know how to enforce this, we put this in, and all of a sudden these crash and there's no mechanisms in place. So just as part of, I don't think it changes anything here, but as part of your
Certainly the
discussions.
medias that we're testing would have a longer lifespan than wood chips.
Which is good, but just as you entertain that, think about what that piece looks like.
Right.
It still has a lifespan.
Yes. And the Department of Health recognizes that, and they write 10 years as the lifespan into their rules for the wood chips. And I believe they're still sussing out how that's all going to look. But I think their idea is that you would have to replace your drain field after 10 years.
Okay, any other discussion? Motion on the floor in a second, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Does that take care of that one?
Did you need to take public comment before calling a question?
Was there any public comment on that memorandum of understanding? I know we have other public comment, but, okay, there's nobody raising a hand. All right, we'll go to general public comments, and just to remind everybody, this is the same kind of format that the Board of County Commissioners uses. You have 3 minutes to address the committee, make all your comments, and if we choose to respond in some way, we'll do that after you're finished, okay? So I have 4 cards, but Walter, I think you put in a card for your presentation. You didn't want to make...
I handed it to her.
Okay, so we'll skip you. I just want to make sure you...
Yeah.
Okay, Sandra Sullivan.
From South Patrick Shores. I wanted to come here today and request the board here to not approve the dredging or to put a hold on the dredging in South Patrick Shores in the Grand Canal area. I'm concerned about the contamination coming from Patrick Air Force Base and off of South Patrick Shores. The outfalls were not tested, but I want to read you something here. This was shortly after one of the drainage to the Banana River started. This is a letter from the EPA. It says, in particular, leachate from a number of disposal sites may be entering the Banana River. Based on the review of the existing data for these units by the EPA, aquatic toxicologists and specialists, is recommended that the facilities obtain surface water and sediment samples from the adjacent areas of the Banana River and Survival Canal, blah, 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 survey the biota, etc. I'm just summarizing real quick. They did do that in 1997, and they came back with recommendation for no swimming signs, do not eat the fish, because there was considerable cancer risk to consumption of fish or exposure to those waters. We're just south of that area, and contaminants that go into the lagoon don't stay in one spot. From my opinion, that report in 2015 on the muck sediment samples was not complete enough. It did not test the outfalls coming from the South Patrick Shores. It did not address that there was contamination potentially from Patrick Air Force Base or from the dump on South Patrick Shores. It didn't evaluate that. And in fact, it went so far as to obscure that. They took an aerial and they cut the aerial showing the dump. So it was like it was purposely omitted from it. I also take exception that one of the key engineers on that project is now working with the county on the dredging projects. I think it represents a concern, and that for the time being that this should be put on hold. We've made a petition to the EPA to come in and do a preliminary assessment on the impact to the Banana River in the area of the base and in the area where we are, and would like to put this on hold until we have the results back from the EPA. I have some aerials here that can show you when that drainage went in. We experienced in our community, within the couple of years following, we had an ALS cluster in South Patrick Shores. We had 6 cases of ALS just in 1 year alone. My concern in disturbing this muck is that we may see further elevation of cancer levels and ALS, and it's a health and safety risk. And I would hope that when there is a concern that we take the more cautious approach until we have more data in hand. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
If anybody wants to see this, I'll be here after the meeting. Thank you.
Lou Kotnick. And after Lou, Mitch Roffer.
Hi, thank you very much. Lou Kotnick, and I live here in Melbourne. And just two quick comments. First off, I think the project review that you guys did, and I just think it's an excellent format, and it seemed to me, it's already been endorsed, but it gives more completeness, more substance, and then the interaction that was stimulated by that. I just think that was a terrific way of handling it. The second point that I wanted to make is that I'm thrilled that we're moving towards education as a part of the overall SORL program. And I was intrigued and definitely going to follow up on the presentation that was made here today. I think it's going to be really important, and I hope that you guys will pay attention to this, encourage it. There's so many different organizations, and I understand that the coalition is one of those organizations, but there's so many different organizations with so many different logos, but with so many different programs, so many different websites, so many different this and that and the other thing. And I think that in the community, it's probably already confusing, and I think it will be increasingly confusing as this goes forward, unless there's really a push and an effort and a proactive, enthusiasm to coordinate, to reinforce, so that the message is clear to our population. So I just throw that onto your plate. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd note that we had this conversation a year ago.
Mitch Roffer.
Hi, good morning. I had some questions about the leachate testing and sampling. Were there just 22 samples for the entire lagoon, or is it per site? And you implied that there's really nothing coming out of the leachate in the biosolids, so there's been questions about where to put these biosolids when they're deposited, and is it healthy for the ecosystem? So I had questions about that, how clear that was. And then the other question I had was, in the letter, one of the letters, there was reference to Gary Zarillo's work about the flow and increasing it significantly. Is Gary's work available to people to review it, and has it been reviewed and published in peer-reviewed journals, which is important in terms of looking at and evaluating the science? So, thank you.
Thank you. So does anybody want to respond to any of those questions?
Yeah. So as it relates to the 22 samples, those were 22 samples that were associated with the Grand Canal Muck Removal Project. So within the footprint of that area, there were 22 cores and samples that were taken and analyzed for a variety of things: heavy metals, PCBs, volatile organic compounds, and I feel like I'm missing one other group, possibly. But there's so that just to clarify what those 22 samples were for.
And they're chelated into the carbon, into the muck, so they're bound.
Yep.
Wow, that's good news.
According to the elutriate and the leachability tests.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the Gary Zarillo report to Port Canaveral, I believe that PowerPoint is available, and there's a port agenda item. I can try to help
Through the port, okay.
get hold of those, or Dwayne DeFries may know how to get hold of them. But that's Dwayne, you want to come up and address that, because it should be available. You're right.
Thank you.
This is a contract that we, both the National Estuary Program and Port Canaveral, started to look first at 10 scenarios on internal flushing as it relates to the causeways. Actually, as of 12 hours ago, an update was just sent to Port Canaveral. So the one question that Dr. Roffer asked was it peer-reviewed? Not in a scientific journal. It is still, in the works, kind of almost in a draft form. However, FDOT has sent it out for review to one of their contract firms, and I don't know what that response is. We'll probably find out at this meeting. But the new data that I saw over the last 24 hours, actually with some boundary changes, increases some of the flow and flushing data that we saw earlier. So I think the last time we spoke to you, we were looking at between 9 to at most 12% flushing. Now it's pushing up into the 19%. And so I'm no expert on this. In fact, I can barely read most of the technical documentation from Dr. Zerillo, but we are going to have a meeting coming up next month with DEP, with Water Management District, the Port, and DOT to start looking at that data. So no peer review
and TPO.
at this point, and TPO.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Virginia, if there are any updates, if you could make sure that we're kind of aware of them, either through email or at the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, no other public comment. We'll close the public comment. General comments from the chair and committee members. Anybody want to make a comment?
I have I look at the list of presentations that staff is doing out in the public every month, but I know some of the Citizens Advisory Committee members are doing presentations too. I know Charlie's done some, and John's done some, and I've done some about the 65-year history of the lagoon and commercial fishing, I was wondering, would it be relevant to include the Citizens Advisory Committee's presentations that they're doing out in the public along with the list of staff presentations? Because we're covering more ground.
I think we have in the past. I did a presentation, but I think if Virginia knows about it, she'll put it in the...
I've been bad about letting her know about it.
Yeah, you too. That's right.
I've been bad about letting her know. So that's probably why it's not in there, is because they haven't.
Well, and I think we haven't, so we could certainly send an email out asking, a week in advance of the prep, please send us your speaking engagements so that we know what to include. If you have that prompt, it'll be easier.
Okay,
if you
thank
want us to do that.
I think, let me throw a different view on this. First of all, I want to focus attention on people in the county staff who are doing things and why it's important. And the more of us we add to that list, it diminishes what they're doing, I think. The other thing is, besides us, we've got a lot of contractors who are giving presentations all over the place out in the public. And, do you want to add them to the list too? And it winds up being, when you're talking about what's being done right now for the lagoon, it winds up being a pretty long list. So for this report, my own preference would be to focus on staff and what they're doing, just to give them some acknowledgement of, we appreciate what they're doing.
Okay. Well, the reason for my question is because I get asked all the time, what's being done? What's being done? And so the fact that contractors and Citizens Advisory Committee members are doing these public presentations, I think is important, but perhaps they need to be kept separate from what staff is doing.
Well, what I would recommend is what I did. I always tell Virginia and try to get Brandon or someone from her staff to come with me, so that way it's not just me speaking, it is the county, connecting the people that we speak to directly with the county, which I think is very important, because Virginia's staff is always open to anyone reaching out and asking questions directly. So I always grab one of them or say, who wants to come with me and go speak somewhere. And maybe that answers both points, where we're actually having the county speak as well, but we can list what's being done.
Anything else?
Well,
Todd?
It sounds like there's pretty clear intent to, one, keep our communication simple, but to make visible the things that are going on. So perhaps that's just something that staff can do, is figure out a way to kind of highlight those things that have been accomplished through a different forum rather than through our reports.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else?
This kind of segues into my question. I was actually just going to throw you an email, Virginia, but expensive or hard would it be to have a blown-up map here during these meetings regarding, and indicating where all the projects are with a little symbol that indicates, what type of project they are? I don't know. It might be too much, but I just know that when we were going through our list of the report of what's going on, I had no clue where they were, even, maybe the city, but that's about it. I'm just curious if that's too hard to do.
I would find that very helpful as well.
So we continue to work on the story map that we've talked about a few times, and staff's been making some good progress lately on the story map. One of the challenges is if you put everything on there, you can't see Brevard because it's just dots. And so,
Which is a good story.
But if you only put the things that are now, then you're not talking, then you're hiding what we've already done or, what's coming next week. And so we're kind of struggling with how to present that information. So we're looking at putting it in different layers by project type, all of which is, more conducive to an online format where you can click things on and off than one printed map. So I'm not sure how best to have that available in this meeting. I think that's a good idea, but let us grapple with that and try some different things and see what does or doesn't work. Because
even if it's online that we can look at while you're talking about a certain project, it's like whereabouts is that? I'm not familiar with all the names for every project. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah. Not to take it back, but on the public presentations, do we have those on the website? Is there a place that all of those would be listed on the website with the appropriate links? And that's for those that, in other words, if we were giving one, we could have it listed there as well.
I may have misunderstood your question. I thought you were talking about these presentations in these meetings, but you're talking about other presentations.
Actually, I was talking about I'm sorry, I took it back to
from Laura Lee's.
Laura Lee's question, and the public presentations that we do, our public education efforts and outreach. Are those all on the website?
We're not even aware that you're doing them, so no, they're not on our website.
Could they be on the website?
I usually don't use one, honestly. I just bring the plan with me and talk. So sometimes they're on panels and we're not presenting either. But I don't see why we couldn't share it. But if I had to do a PowerPoint, I'd call Virginia and get one of hers.
Well, I wasn't talking about the PowerPoint. I was talking about the actual date and time and place of the presentations, and so that, because I refer people to the site all the time, and I guess I was just assuming that all the opportunities to get more information would be there.
Sometimes it's for a particular group, like a homeowners association or something like that. So
what we try to do on your one-page, monthly summary, right? We have these upcoming Lagoon Science Forums and public events. So, if you're speaking at something that's open to the public, please let us know, because yes, we are posting that. We are. I need social media speak, cross-posting and boosting and whatever it is that happens out there, trying to drive folks to those events and let them know they're going on. So,
But the packages themselves that you use for those presentations are or are not available online.
So not only do we have it in the agenda that's online, but we pull out the progress report separately, and there's a separate section on the website that's posted. If there are, public events, we can also do events on Facebook. So if we're going to be out speaking at an engagement, we can create an event there. Or if you guys want something like that advertised, let us know, and we can create a Facebook event to let people know you'll be out speaking at something. So that is our options currently. But we do put that progress report with all those speaking engagements on the Sorrel website.
But the package that's presented the view graphs that are used in that presentation, are they available online? Not the
Not
date and time and
usually.
place, but the
Yeah.
material that's
I
presented.
mean, sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not, depending on the event.
Yeah, and like if you're talking about the PowerPoints themselves, I mean, they change each time we go out, depending on the group we're talking to. We update all the project progress, so all of that gets changed. I think it become sort of cumbersome to keep putting every single presentation, well, the PowerPoints out there at least. You know, if someone wants a copy of one that we do, we can always present, send it to them, email it to them, but.
Charlie, did you have something that you wanted to, no? Todd?
Not to mention, if there's that much going on, it'll just get overwhelming for people to know what to even find. So if you can keep it distilled down to kind of the key points, because I would be concerned that it just gets so overwhelming. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be made available, if they can be readily available somewhere, but from a communication standpoint, you can have overload real
Yeah,
fast.
and if they pull up an old one, they have outdated information, so it's.
Okay, anybody else with final comments? Final comments? Okay, I've got two. One is that the Cone Road visitation we're going to be doing later this month. Visit Brevard delivers magazine on your table, and on page 6 of that is a description of the Cone Road project, which would be really helpful for people to look at. Do your homework before you go to the trip, because there'll be a quiz after the trip's over with. The second one is, earlier today, we heard about 3 hardware stores that have eliminated selling some of the fertilizers. I think they deserve special recognition, and it's probably not appropriate for us to do that at this point. But I would hope that we could encourage the county commission to do something for those merchants, so that maybe we could get a motion to say, yeah, the county commission should endorse these guys for doing a great job as Lagoon champions or something, whatever the appropriate verbiage is. But acknowledge. So we have
safe ground that has to do with that. On Tuesday, May 21st, there will be a reading of a resolution commemorating Lagoon Appreciation Day and to help kick off the fertilizer ban season on June 1st. So if they are able to be contacted and they show up, I'm sure that the commissioners will be saying something at that point.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
One more thing, with the site tour of the Cone Road project on the 31st, if you have not, I've heard from about 3/4 of you already. If you haven't responded, whether you'll be there or not, please let me know, because we have to get a bus and make sure we have the right size bus for all those who will be attending. And if anyone from the public wants to attend, we ask that you also contact us. We have the information both on the website and on our Facebook event post for it, to just email the Indian River Lagoon page and let us know you plan to attend, so we can make sure we have accommodations for everyone.
Thank you. And with that,
Are you going to adjourn? I'm sorry.
I was going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
We don't need a motion to adjourn. We just adjourned.
Okay.
Do it.
Adjourn.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.